Really?
But why is it green?
It's just green. It's just green on the outside.
We started yet, by the way.
We have.
It's voting Zach
What?
Wolanski.
Yeah, we have. Sorry.
Oh, hang on.
Okay.
Mike,
Well,
we're here.
We're here. Sorry. Well, you didn't tell me we were starting. I didn't realise. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show. I'm Mike Graham, and that was my banana.
Mike Graham, vegetable and fruit
Vegetable and fruit hour, which we would do before. What's going on? Because my hair's gone funny as well. I've not read. This is Monday, obviously. Amber Wolf is here. Very good morning to you.
You weren't allowed in the bathroom to do your hair and makeup.
Yeah, I know she wouldn't let me in there.
I'm allowed.
She said, "Well, why are you allowed?"
Because I'm nice to her and I speak Spanish.
I'm nicer to her, but I don't speak Spanish. I said I couldn't get in. I had to do it without a mirror. Look at it. What's going on with it?
Get your earpiece in as well.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Well, do you know what?
Does it look all right though?
Yeah,
Does it look
you
bad?
look wonderful, but can I just say, I think the chaos in here is nothing compared to the chaos in Downing Street right now. Because they do not know what is going on. They don't know whether to pull the big speech or not pull the big speech.
I know. I saw you put a tweet out last night saying you know more about, what was it you said?
Astrophysics.
Astrophysics than this government knows about what to do next.
Well, and what is happening next.
And what is happening next?
I mean all they know in the diary, I think they know they have the King's speech on Wednesday. So they don't really know whether the Prime Minister's still going to be in place.
No.
Is he packing? Is he not packing?
Right. Well, he should be packing.
Is Streeting making a is
well, let's have a
poised
look
to
at
leap?
the headlines this
Is
morning.
Rayner poised to leap? Is Burnham going to make a mad dash down the M25 and make a mad leap?
See, I think they're all jumping the gun with Burnham because with Burnham, he says, maybe I'm going to run in Clive Lewis's seat and maybe I'll get into Parliament that way. He could run and not win. You know, it's
that
very
would
possible,
be brilliant.
Which would be hilarious.
That would be
Andy
absolutely
Burnham, don't worry,
hilarious.
I'm coming. I haven't won the seat.
And then he loses both.
And then he's out of a job,
Yeah.
basically. And he'd have to come and work for us. We wouldn't give him a job, though. So let's have a look at some of the... Although, should we do, sticking on the fruit front, should we not do a poll, just something different? Because people are probably sick to death of this psychodrama. We'll be covering it, obviously, but why don't we do a poll about fruit?
Yeah, good.
What do you reckon?
Yeah.
Have you got one?
No.
Okay. Why don't we do one on
I sent it to Charlotte.
What's your least favourite?
Least favourite fruit.
Least favourite fruit. How about that?
Yeah. No.
Let's have a look.
Because I was mentioning this incredibly juicy pear that I had, but you know, a rock hard pear is a thing of misery.
Charlotte sent me a message going, "You do know you're on, right?" I mean, it would have been helpful if somebody told me. How about this? What's your least favourite fruit? Green bananas.
Fluffy apples.
Fluffy apples, right?
Yeah.
Soft grapes or rock hard pears. Over to you, Emma. What's your least favourite
Fluffy
fruit?
apples make me miserable.
Do they?
Rock hard pears are pointless. You've cut into them.
I don't like those.
So they're done. You can't do anything with them once they're rock hard. And they won't ripen. They just won't ripen.
Oh, rock hard pears winning, Emma.
Rock hard pears, I think, is probably my least favourite, actually. Green bananas, a thumbs up for me, because this is fine.
I've had rock hard plums before.
Have you? There's nothing worse. Do you know, when I used to work in the bakery, I used to have to cut plums in half. And there's an optimum, softness for plums.
Yeah.
Because if they're too hard, you end up cutting yourself with a knife.
Yeah.
And there's no juice. If they're too soft, the skin comes off.
And everything
as you
just
cut them in half, and it all
disintegrates.
just disintegrates into mush.
Okay, but
So-
one more thing about fruit.
You wouldn't think we were in the midst of a political crisis, would you?
But that's how farcical it's all become.
Yeah.
One more thing about fruit. Have you had golden kiwi?
No.
They're from Australia.
Right.
Some Australian friends brought some back, and they're so good, and they're even better
So what,
than
they're
green.
not green?
No, they're
What,
golden.
gold on
They're
the
golden
inside?
on the inside, and
What
they're
about the
so tasty. And I actually think you can get them in this country. I don't know where, but maybe somewhere.
Maybe Chinatown. Have you ever been to Chinatown?
Yeah, of course I have.
Have you seen the vegetables they sell there?
They're weird, aren't they?
There's a stinky fruit one.
Yeah,
that's
the
terrible.
stinky
There's
fruit one.
What's it called?
Durian.
Durian. Then there's
Durian.
There's the star fruit thing, which is spiky looking.
I just don't know what to do with these weird spiky ones and the stinky ones and the ugly fruit.
Ugly fruit, yeah.
Lychees are not nice.
I'm not keen on those.
Lychees.
No, not keen. Anyway, should we get on with the show? Because it's already 6 minutes past 7.
Mike, you owe some money.
What?
You owe some money.
Well, you say that, but hang on. How do you know I owe money? Because Starmer's going, right? And the bet was Starmer's going, right?
No, the bet was you said he would not last the local elections. He would be out.
Yeah, he's not going to last.
He would be. Sorry, he has. It's May the 11th.
Yeah, but he's not going to last until the end of the week.
The election.
Is he?
Oh, you can't change the parameters of a bet.
Well, have you got a clip?
I've got a clip.
All right, let's have a look. All right, let's have a look at what we said because
always a
obviously
clip.
everyone's forgotten what we said. Anyway, Emma, thank you very much indeed. Great to see you. Next time I see you, I think we might have a new Prime Minister, but you never know. Because,
right, would you like a bet on that? Should we do a bet?
Should we have a bet? Okay.
A tenner.
Right. A tenner for...
I say a tenner that Starmer lasts and lasts and lasts, and he lasts beyond May 7th.
Really? Okay, I'll take that. So that means if he quits on May the 8th, I win, right?
Yeah.
Because he's quit as a result of that. So I'll take that bet.
I think by the summer he'll still be here.
I will take that bet. Yeah, definitely. £10 in any currency you wish to offer it to me in. And,
euros?
No.
Don't do euros.
Apart from euros.
don't
yeah, I don't
euros.
want euros, no, because obviously you can't go to Europe at the moment because they're too busy trying to stop you from getting into the country. Anyway, look, it's 7:37. Let's have a quick update on the poll. So, okay, so I said he'd be out by May the 8th.
May the 8th.
Fair. This is £10 of the realm. See, normally what I would do at this point is I'd rip it in half, right? Give you half of it and go, if he's still here at the end of the week, you give me that half back. And if...
You can't, though.
If he's gone... sorry, and if he's... No. What am I saying? So if he's gone, I get that back.
You get that back, okay.
By the end of the week.
Well, you can double or quit.
Double or quits? Well, hang on, no, because he's going. I mean, they're all saying in the papers today, by the end of today, he could be gone.
Could be.
Yeah.
I have said all along, since July the 4th...
You said he's going to be here till the summer.
Look. Are you being dishonest now? Are you one of those people
Capricorn
that tries
says,
to...
are you over a tenner?
You tried to Welsh on a bet.
I'm not trying to Welsh on a
Welsh.
bet. Hang on a second. Right? Hang on a minute. I'm saying...
Pay up, Mike.
Yeah, but the wheels are in motion for him to leave, right? He's going to leave probably, but if he doesn't leave by the end of the day...
Might get your tenner out.
You said...
You are just...
You said...
You're like, bedtime is at 6:30. No, it's at 8:30. No, it's not.
Bedtime?
Bedtime.
It's only a tenner I'm giving you. You know. All right, I tell you what, there it is. There's your £10.
I'm going to buy some.
What are you going to buy? Some stinky
grapes.
Fruit with it?
Ugly fruit. I can't believe, Mike. I thought you were a man. I thought you were upset.
I'm just giving it to you.
Yeah, but listen. This thing about he might go. Firstly, the bet was for May the 8th. Secondly, he'll cling on.
Hang on, you said he'll be here until the summer. Now, judging by the weather, it's going to be quite a long time away.
Well, if you want...
all right, define the summer then.
Okay. I have said he will cling on.
When is the summer?
I don't know what I said about the summer.
You said he'll be there until the summer.
Yeah, but okay, exactly. Meteorological summer is
solstice.
June 21st.
Okay, so if he's not there on June the 21st, you give me that back.
All right.
Yeah.
But we should have raised the stakes a bit because I could have just won 100 off you.
How?
By saying that he'll be gone by the local elections.
Yeah, but you didn't bet 100, you bet 10.
I know.
You know. I would say this. Pooch, what do you think?
I had to practically arm wrestle the man to get the bet, and it's clearly there on a clip.
If he's not here on the 21st of June, if he's gone, I get the tenner back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
And if he's still there, Emma gets 50.
What? Okay then. All right, I'll take that. Well, it should be 5 to 1.
Yeah, I think so.
How can it be 5 to 1? He's already on the skids are already under him.
But you keep saying that. You said the day after the general election he won't last until Christmas.
Yeah, unbelievable.
You know.
Here we go.
All right. Okay. Anyway, enjoy the £10.
Mike is clinging on to his tenner. It's not even a very nice tenner, to be honest with you. It's all crumpled.
I'm sorry, I didn't get it especially out of the bank.
But it's these tenners that don't fold, don't tear, nothing.
Yeah, you probably can't rip it in half, actually. I once did that with a friend of mine's son when he was about 10. I gave him half of $100 bill for his birthday when he was 10, and I said, "You bring that to me when you're 18, and we'll go and spend it, right, on a bar crawl in New York." And I think by the time he was 18, he was in prison. So we never saw him again. Anyway, here we are. Look, we're going to get on with the show. It's 11 minutes past 7. Streeting and Rayner ready for Starmer's fall. PM on the brink as rebellion could seal his fate today, according to the Daily Mail. Rayner blasts Prime Minister's record and signals a Burnham alliance. Streeting's bid is poised to rival parties hard left. Front page of the Times. Prime Minister fights to save his skin after Rayner's ultimatum. I saw yesterday, I can't remember who said it, but there was a piece on Twitter where someone said, I really hate the fact that all politicians are now using AI, because Angela Rayner's statement, which is reproduced in full in the Mail, is really long. And when you read it, it reads like a sort of chat GPT treatise, doesn't it?
It was Bev Turner who actually said, I found it very depressing that everything is written by AI. Yes. And it was, and I thought, who has written this absolute drivel?
Yeah.
And there she is.
Because she obviously hasn't written it, has she?
She obviously hasn't written it.
I mean, if you try reading it in Angela Rayner's accent.
Even that, absolutely.
Our party has suffered a historic defeat. Many good Labour colleagues. It's just not the way she speaks, is it?
But also, Mike, do you know what's really depressing me at the moment? This is all about them. Okay, it's farcical. Yes. It's all about them. Yeah. It's all about their little, egos and their personalities and their careers and clinging onto their seats. Even the statements they all put out on Friday about, we're so sad for our colleagues who've lost their jobs, who lost their seat. I kept thinking, since when did it stop being about the electorate,
the people,
about the country,
exactly.
about the people?
Exactly.
All this stuff about, we are here to serve. Basic kind of a politician. We pay their salaries
and everything else.
We pay for their entire lifestyles. Yeah. But this is absolutely shocking that it has become, as you say, this psychodrama.
It really has. And I mean, we'll play some clips as we go. But, it is absolutely utterly ridiculous that they've decided, like streeting on the front page of the Telegraph, I'm ready to be Prime Minister. Well, nobody asked for you to be Prime Minister. Nobody voted you in as Prime Minister. Keir Starmer happened to be the leader of the Labour government when they were voted in. But all this personality stuff is ridiculous,
all about them, isn't it?
And even Catherine West, the woman who's challenging him today, who's slightly walked away from it and said, well, I'm going to wait and see, then I'm going to need a timetable. She's only doing it apparently because her friend was a councillor and lost her job.
It's not about the people at all, is it?
No, it really isn't.
And as for Andy Burnham, I mean, the brass neck of him and Angela Rayner demanding that he be given a chance at the, running at the Prime Ministership.
Yeah.
He's not an MP.
No.
Go and get yourself, do what everyone else does. Go and get yourself elected as an MP. Then you can start demanding that you want to run as leader.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
shocking.
Well,
that was another thing that somebody said yesterday. They showed a picture of some stats from Manchester and how Manchester's, basically collapsing in on itself. Yeah. Ever since he's been running it, it's actually got worse. The economy's got worse, crime has got worse. There's nothing good about his mayorship of Manchester at all. And also, I remember when he was an MP, he wasn't particularly brilliant. He didn't, rattle any trees. He didn't suddenly shake the ground. It's like in the mafia they've got saying, who died made you boss? Yeah. And nobody died to make him boss. And who says by any means that he's going to be any good? But we got a preview last night of Keir Starmer's speech, which he's making, we believe, I think 11 o'clock this morning. I did have a thought, actually, or maybe at 10 o'clock this morning. I did have a thought, Pooch, that we should carry it, but I don't think there's much point, to be honest. What I will do, though, maybe, is a little, editorial piece later on today. Once we've seen what he said. But here's supposedly, this is quoting from his speech, right?
Mike and Starmer like two peas in a pod. Just
very good.
That's number 10.
Very good.
That is brilliant.
That is the tweet of the day.
Tweet of the day.
Very good. How about this, right? I'm going to do it in full Starmer accent. To meet the challenges that our country faces, incremental change won't cut it. On growth, defence, Europe, energy, we need a bigger response than we anticipated in 2024 because these are not ordinary times. And I'm going to do the thing. Do you do the thing?
Oh, the donut hand.
Strength through fairness. It's a core Labour argument, and you will see those values writ large in the King's speech, and you will see hope, urgency, and.
It's even weirder than that, the donut hands. He sort of holds them in front of him.
Oh, that's true, yes. What is that?
It's a very anxious, it's a tense body language, right? Yeah. He's very tense. He's not relaxed. He's not one of those people that can walk around and talk. He's very tense. Yeah. And he doesn't know how to be.
He really doesn't.
He's not actually human. You said in your weekend wind-up, which I thought was brilliant, by the way.
Thank you.
Well, no, they're not always, but that one was.
Well, okay.
It was
brilliant.
You can
see Ziggy quite well in the background.
No, yeah,
as well,
Ziggy. It was lovely to see the Sussex Downs. This man, you were saying, he's not even human.
No.
He will not go.
He won't.
That's why ridiculous. I'm happy to bet tenner or 100 or £1,000 because he will not go.
Well, you may well be right. Let's have a look at what he actually said. This is what he said on Friday to the nation when he was asked if he was going to walk away.
We made a number of calls which were the right calls in terms of stabilising the economy, investing in our public services and not getting dragged into the Iran war. But we also made unnecessary mistakes. And my job now is to set out the steps that we will take to bring about the change that people want and deserve.
To be clear, you are not going to resign.
No, I'm not going to walk away and plunge the country into chaos. We were elected to deal with these challenges, and that's what we will do.
Has Ed Miliband asked you to set out a timetable for your departure?
Well, I think Ed Miliband has dealt with this and made absolutely clear that he supports me.
Say to those in your party that are really upset with you, they don't think you're getting it and they're calling for your resignation. What do you say to would-be challengers and the party? What's your message?
I think it's very important that we don't sugarcoat these results, so I'm not going to do that. They are tough results, I accept that. They reflect voters who don't feel that their lives have changed enough or quickly enough, and that's been going on for a long time. We were elected to deal with that, and I'm not going to walk away from that responsibility and plunge the country into chaos.
You forgot the old Starmer alert.
But this is what is astonishing.
Yeah.
Right? The man has been, as you would say, backsided, trounced in the local election.
He has.
Backsided.
Blindsided. There you go. That's my
Blindsided.
polite version of you're
Okay.
bummed, because
All
I
right.
think bummed is rude.
Okay, then.
I'm told by my 5-year-old bum is a rude word, so
Okay.
we won't use that word.
Okay.
He's been blindsided. He's been trounced in the local elections.
Yeah.
So his response, firstly, as you said in your wind-up, is appoint a couple of 75-year-olds that no one likes from a couple of decades ago.
Gordon Brown.
Random.
And old Harriet Harperson, she used to be
Harperson.
called, who doesn't know what a woman is, by the way.
He
But
thinks
she's
a
gonna
woman
be,
can have a penis.
Yeah.
But she's been appointed as...
She's the safeguard of women and girls.
Thank you very much.
It's a bit dangerous, isn't it?
I feel safe now.
What's that woman doing over there? Oh, he's just having a pee. Why is he using a urinal?
Much worse than that.
Huh?
What is that man doing in the women's changing room?
Yeah.
It's much worse than that.
Yeah.
Anyway, Harriet Harperson
Yeah.
and Gordon Brown were elected randomly for these weird advisory roles.
Yeah.
And then the second response from Starmer is this bizarre speech today about Europe. A closer alignment with Europe, which is exactly what the British people said they didn't want
Yeah.
7 years ago,
Yeah.
8 years ago.
More than that, yeah.
When was the
10
Brexit
years ago.
referendum? 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So which part of go does Starmer not understand?
I know. It is extraordinary,
Get
isn't it?
the hell out.
Let's have a look at a couple of other clips. This is Angela Rayner saying that Starmer needs to meet the moment. That's number 2.
A very good evening, and we start with breaking news and a significant intervention tonight from the former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner concerning the Labour Party's future direction and further piling on the pressure on Sir Keir Starmer. Let's go straight to Westminster and join our political correspondent Ali Fortescue. What has Angela Rayner had to say, Ali?
Well, Angela Rayner, the former Deputy Prime Minister, has been pretty eerily quiet this weekend since that bruising set of local election results. She is widely seen to be a potential leadership contender, and there has been plenty, as we know, of leadership speculation over the course of the weekend. She has now spoken. She has released a statement. I will read you part of it. She says, "This is bigger than personalities, but it is time to acknowledge that blocking Andy Burnham was a mistake. We must show we understand the scale of change the moment calls for. That means bringing our best players into Parliament and embracing the type of agenda that has been successful at a local level rather than reaching back to an agenda and politics that has failed people. These are the fights we need to have, and the change in direction we need to see. Policy tweaks will not fix the fundamental changes facing our country. This government needs, at pace, to put measures in place that make people's lives tangibly better while fixing the foundations of a system rigged against them. The Prime Minister must now meet the moment and set out the change our country needs. Labour exists, she says, to make working people better off. That is not happening fast enough, and it needs to change now." I think the most interesting part of Angela Rayner's statement were her words about Andy Burnham, aligning herself with the Mayor of Manchester, who undoubtedly is a popular figure among the party's soft left. What is she up to? Is this a game of 3D chess? Does she want the leadership herself? Is this a way of her getting support from some of those MPs, while Andy Burnham is, of course, in Manchester, not currently an MP who could go...
With all the fresh we could bring produce from all parts of London and the
sorry.
South East.
No,
Back on, Mike.
you didn't say we're back on. I was finishing my green banana. What's the poll say so far? We're asking what's your least favourite fruit.
But also,
Excuse me. We'll find it in a minute. But I think at the moment, rock hard pears is winning.
are they winning?
Yeah.
I'm really concerned about Starmer and his
I got a note actually from a mate of mine who's big into alternative poll. I'm not doing that. From Cliff Mandelson's favourite fruit and veg. I'll do a bit of that later. Cliff, thank you very much indeed. Did you see what she was wearing, Angela? She looked like a straitjacket with a belt. Only they've taken the arms out.
The two of them.
Can we have another look at that? Or is it difficult to do?
The two of them and their dress sense is...
A very good evening, and we...
And the scale of change the moment calls for. That means bringing our best players into Parliament and embracing the type of agenda that has been successful at the local
it's
level,
the boxy
rather
jacket,
than reaching
this insistence that he's got.
Politics that
someone's
has
told him it's
failed
quite trendy
people.
to wear like a dark shirt with a dark suit, and he now does it all the time. The navy blue or the black shirt, which doesn't work for him. You can only a few, I would say.
If you're sort of a very thin, beautiful young Italian
very
man,
slim, exactly.
You could look very cool.
It works. But look, the boxy jacket. It's too long sleeves. The jacket's slightly too short. He doesn't know the rules. I know there are rules. You would know them about buttons. You do up one, but you don't do up all of the buttons.
No.
And then her dress is a total disaster.
I think the most
interesting. The belt cinching in the waist. She doesn't have a waist.
No.
If you have a waist, you cinch it in. If you don't, you don't.
She's a waist of space.
She is a waist. But also the puff sleeves. You don't wear puff sleeves over the age of about 3.
No. Well, it's mental age of 3. You can have that. Just a quick one on the fruit. Sorry to keep going about the fruit, but it's keeping my mind off the disaster that is this government. Least favourite fruit, green bananas, fluffy apples, both at 22%, soft grapes at 11%, so they're the least unfavourite, and rock hard pears at 44%. So there we are. Keep voting. So far we've got 3,125
But I did
votes.
find out, someone messaged me after the show on Friday to tell us why some bananas don't ripen. Which is actually information that we need.
Well, why these are green skinned?
So apparently they get picked when they're still green, and then they're transported over here. But they're kept in kind of cold storage, so they're in trucks, they're in the refrigerated section at the back of Tesco or whatever. So they just don't ripen, but they're ripening inside. It's just the skin itself.
It's a relatively new thing.
Green.
It's a relatively new thing, isn't it? Because normally speaking,
they look really hard, don't they?
They're awful, absolutely awful. But I'm kind of, they're confusing me because at the end of the day, you don't know when they're ready to eat. But basically now, next time I buy green bananas, I'll start eating them and they won't be ripe.
Exactly. I think it's a time thing. Just buy them green, let them ripen. If they don't, then you'll know that they've had 7 days to ripen inside. But it's that risk that they suddenly turn, and then you need to make banana bread, apparently.
Something like that, I haven't got time for that.
No, I haven't, but I love banana bread.
What about another clip? Should we do Trevor Phillips? Because he's great. He was great yesterday. He had Bridget Phillipson on. And Bridget Phillipson, who a lot of people said, finally that smug grin of hers has been wiped off her face because she is right in the dark stuff, horrible stuff. Have a look.
I'm asking you a specific question about what's going to change. And thus far, on Europe, on immigration, you're not telling me anything's going to change. On welfare, 2-child cap, any change there?
Well, there was definitely a big change, and I'm glad because we're going to lift 500,000 children out of poverty.
Yeah, but you're not going to resign on that. The point is, the Prime Minister's been saying for the last 3 days, I hear you, I get it, we are going to change. I've now asked you about the three of the biggest issues facing the government, and what I'm getting is nothing's going to change.
Look, the wrong message to take from the elections that we've just had would be that people want us to change TAP.
I want to know whether when the Prime Minister says he's going to change, what is going to change? Nothing on the big policies is going to change.
Look, part of the frustration that people feel about the state of our country is a failure of government to have a system that works for them. That is what has to change. And a part of that is around immigration. Look,
so what does that mean?
Hang on.
Well, what does it mean? No, you're giving me a lot of words, but what does it mean?
Right, I have always believed that you have to have a system, a fair system, one that recognises the benefits but has clear controls alongside it. That is the system that we are going to deliver. That is not the system that we have at the moment. That's part of the reason that people feel government isn't working for them. It's part of the answer. It's not part of the problem.
Nobody's going to argue it would be good if government worked. You're just not telling me how you're going to make it work.
I just did. So on immigration, you're saying to me, are we going to change approach? This is a change. Because
it's the same approach we had on Wednesday.
It is not. It changed from what has gone before in the years running up to this.
Okay.
I don't know why people keep saying we should stop talking about fruit. We're not talking about fruit. We're talking about
politics,
the state of the nation.
Zara Sultana.
Zara Sultana. They did really badly, actually, the All Party. I think in one place they stood and they got like something like 60 votes. And so the whole project is now on its arse, effectively.
Did they decide on their leader?
No, I don't think they did. I don't think they've got one.
Absolute madness.
You know, because Corbyn is now busy suing everybody for calling him an anti-Semite. I don't think he's going to win that. And nobody knows what's happened to Zara Sultana.
Well, she was thrown out of the chamber a few weeks. Yeah. Maybe no one's ever seen her since.
That's the other thing, right? There's no cabinet meeting today, okay? Because apparently Parliament isn't sitting. Yeah. So they only have cabinet meetings when Parliament's sitting. What about when there's a massive crisis of leadership?
Well, are they not sitting? Oh, they prorogued parliaments. They didn't have to face anybody
until
the King's speech.
Until the King's speech on Wednesday. So there's that.
What an embarrassment for King Charles. What an embarrassment to have to stand up and read out a bunch of policies for a government that is literally...
Well, they'll have to do that my government thing, won't he? My government would like to do... except you haven't got a government. I mean, they're literally not doing anything.
Is it time for the King, this should be the poll, is it time for the King just to say, come on, this is a joke, sort yourselves out, get out, new Parliament?
Just have a general election. A lot of people think that. I believe that that's what they should do.
I really do.
I think they should have a general election. Piers Morgan put out a tweet last night after he saw Starmer's speech. He says, Sir Keir Starmer's job-saving speech tomorrow was flat, boring, uninspiring, and monotonous, and full of the same old meaningless cliches he's been spouting for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's exactly right. So, I mean, whatever he says today is not going to make any bleeding difference to him. But, there's other stories as well today around the whole idea that, this Catherine West woman is going to trigger a load of other people to possibly either challenge him. Yeah. And, of course, the thing that I'd like to point out is that in the summer of 2024, I was told by all sorts of luminary political types, Labour government will never replace its leader. It's not what they do. And also there's no mechanism by which they could do it. The Tories can do it. Well, it turns out that, one, there is a mechanism to do it, and two, they're doing it. So all of those people who said I was wrong can stick it right up your rock-hard pears, because, quite frankly, I was right again.
Well, are they doing it, or are they just too frit?
They are going to... I think there's... From what I can see and reading the runes and watching some of the tweets coming out late last night from people like James Heal at The Spectator, from people like Tim Shipman, they're all hearing that it's over. It's all over for Starmer, and, it's a matter of time. And I think by the end of today, here's my latest, suggestion for you. By the end of today, he will be forced to have set out some kind of timetable. He'll have to make some kind of accession to the fact that they want him out.
I can concede that he may say by party conference, I will then hand over to get clutch at some shreds of his final shreds of long gone dignity. Yes. He may say that. That may be a way that they let him leave with some kind of reputation intact.
I don't think it's too late for that.
I don't know why Catherine West suggested he could be given some, some juicy international role. That was a bit odd. Yeah. I mean, this doesn't work like that. No. Get out. You've made it absolutely... He's wrecked the country in the last 18 months.
Story in the Mail today saying
he should be given an international role. I think he should be in prison.
163,000 jobs are going to go this year alone.
What a legacy.
That's the forecast, right? There's going to be more strikes in the NHS. Senior doctors now talking about going on strike.
What about teachers going on strike? I mean, it's an absolute disaster.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Polanski's back in the news today as well, because not only did he falsely claim to be with the Red Cross, apparently he's now also falsely claimed to work at the Justice Department.
Really, really shocking. They're all at it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worse than Rachel Reeves, isn't it, with her fabricated CV.
It's absolutely dreadful. You've got some odds? Okay. Let's do it. Well, I was going to say the other big story that people are talking about this morning is the rat virus ship. Once again, we were talking we had Hugh Andre at the live show from We Served on Wednesday night, which was brilliant, by the way. I know we talked about it a lot last week. We're going to talk about it some more this week, because we love doing it so much that we're going to do more. But he was saying, what happens when everybody needs, when there's floods in the West Country, the army goes, when there's a fireman strike, the army goes to cover it. The army have now gone out and parachuted onto the ship to help evacuate the people. And they're bringing them all to Manchester. So more good news for Andy Burnham. He's going to have a load of people with rat virus arriving any minute now.
absolute nightmare.
I know.
That floating rat ship.
Yeah.
No one wants them.
Floating rat ship. It's
No
true.
one,
You know.
no one wants them. They're being turned away from everywhere. And also, a cruise ship is incredibly confined.
But this is why,
right?
and I know
everything that comes out, all the viruses are just circulating around a ship. It's absolutely horrific and horrendous.
Okay, we got some odds there, but I can't make any sense. That's like the thing you put up the other week, which I couldn't make any sense of. Is it because I'm being stupid?
Yeah.
What's it for?
So, Starmer to resign in 2026.
Okay.
4 on.
9 to 4 on, okay.
July, September 6 to 5.
How have I managed to give away 5 to 1 on that then? To Emma? Hey? I'm obviously not a very good bookie. And then, what, 2027 or later?
2 to 1.
2 to 1. That's not very encouraging, is it?
No.
That's weird. Because, I mean, the odds on for, like, leaving today or this week should be quite short, I think. Shouldn't they? Anyway, never mind.
So he needs to last until June 21st?
Yes.
Right.
Otherwise, you owe me 10 quid.
Okay.
All right? And I think I'm safe with that.
Okay.
I think I'm
well,
very
we'll,
safe
we'll
with
see.
that.
We'll see. I think he's a limpet.
A couple of other things to mention. Emissions have risen. Carbon emissions have risen in the past 12 months, despite net zero and despite Ed Miliband trying to make everybody, get heat pumps and solar panels and stop driving around in cars. Well done, Ed.
Well done, Ed.
He's gone very quiet, hasn't he?
Yeah, is he on manoeuvres to be Chancellor? Apparently that's what...
Well, everyone keeps saying he doesn't want the job. He doesn't want to be Prime Minister.
No.
Which presumably means he does want to be Prime Minister because you can't believe a word
I think
these
he's
people
desperate
say.
to be Chancellor, apparently.
Yeah.
I mean, how does it work like that? Just such a ridiculous system.
Well, it is a ridiculous system because, as you say, surely we should now, as the public, having voted in massive numbers for reform and having voted against the Labour government in massive numbers, either not for reform but maybe for the Greens, they should be forced to take account of that and that the mood of the nation has now changed. And 2 years after they were elected, they should now have to ask for the confidence of the government, of the people of Britain again and have another general election.
This is what I find so shocking is that Starmer's response is basically zero. Just ignore it and carry on like nothing matters.
Yeah.
Talk about something else. Look over there,
Yeah.
And people's voices are simply not heard and they don't care. No one cares.
They don't seem to care. How about this, right? We found this old clip of Angela Rayner from 2022 having a go at the Tory party for basically putting Rishi Sunak in as Prime Minister without a general election. Check it out.
I think it's a continuation of the problems that the Conservatives have faced. Look, we're going to have 3 Prime Ministers in 3 months. We've had, Rishi Sunak was the Chancellor where we've seen low growth. We've not seen that growth in our economy. He's failed to deal with the inflation that we've seen, and families are really worried about the cost of living that they face, and have heard nothing from Rishi Sunak in the, week or whatever it's been that we've had the contest about how he's going to actually tackle the challenges that people are facing today.
Does Labour fear Rishi Sunak in a general election?
Labour thinks that we should be having a general election. I think everybody who I've spoken to, the public, have said we should be having a general election. There is no mandate now. The Conservatives have completely broken their promises, broke our economy, and now they want to see a general election. They can't just keep doling out Prime Ministers every month because they're in total chaos and they've lost control of the market and haven't got any ideas of how they're going to tackle the cost of living that people are facing.
Is weeks more of uncertainty that potential yet another change in Prime Minister through a general election really what the country needs?
Well, what we've seen played out is a coronation here and not an actual election where people have a mandate to serve the British people of this country. Rishi Sunak was rejected by his own party membership only weeks ago. The people of this country now deserve us to go to the electorate to put our policies forward about how we're going to deal with this cost of living crisis that the Conservatives have put upon the British people and let them have a vote.
I wonder who that was that came through the door.
Someone opened the door.
Was it the boyfriend
behind
thing?
her?
What's his name, the boyfriend?
Sam Tarry.
Sam Tarry, yeah. The guy who
On-off.
on-off boyfriend. Well, that's one way of putting it, I suppose. But that's why she got the place in Hove, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, wasn't it?
So that they could share it. And he's now a lobbyist, by the way.
He's been involved. Yeah,
he's been involved because he's got some quite good connections in the music business.
Yeah.
And he's apparently, there was a story a while back about how he was introducing various members of different sort of, record labels and whatever to members of the government. And I wonder how he got access to them.
Exactly.
You do wonder.
Well, you remember when he had to move his stuff and she got her security officers, some of her bodyguards, to help move his stuff.
In her ministerial car.
Exactly.
That she wasn't supposed to have anymore. There was a message here from somebody which I can find, hopefully, about the... it says it takes 5 weeks or something to get a new leader, which means that he will be in charge until beyond June the 21st. Well, I'm not sure about that. That's cutting it a bit fine, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, the problem is meanwhile, while all this is going on, yesterday we found out that they're going to send HMS Dragon into the Middle East, right? Now, this despite the fact that Keir Starmer keeps telling us we're not involved in the war. Well, you are now, because the Iranians have said if you send a British ship into the Straits of Hormuz, we will consider that a hostile act, which will mean we are at war.
Exactly.
Right?
And the focus is not on that.
No.
And they're not talking about this anymore.
Yeah. No, they're not talking about anything. Why are you chuckling? Did I miss it? Mike, are you trying to grow a ponytail on the side of your head? No, I'm really not. I think this is a funny angle. I think there's something wrong with the camera. It seems that there's more hair on this side than there is on the other side.
Well, that was because you got a hairdresser, a freelance hairdresser. Was he actually a hairdresser?
Oh no, he cut my hair very well, actually.
Okay.
It's just I think that there was a problem.
Well, you just said there was more hair on one side of your head than the other.
No, that's what it looks like.
Maybe you slept on one side.
It's possible. Well, I did put some hairspray in, but I don't think I did it right. Hey?
You coming on the motorbike?
No, but I'm going to be coming in a convertible tomorrow. So you can look out for that. I may have I don't know if I could open the roof up or what. But my son, I've got to borrow my son's car because my car's going in for a service, and he's very kindly agreed to lend it to me. So yeah, it's quite hard to get in and out of as well. But it'd be quite funny. I'll be crawling around. And there's a great video of Johnny Cash. Have you ever seen it, Pooch? Johnny Cash trying to get into his Ferrari, and he lies down on the ground, and puts his legs in, and then sort of pulls himself in because he can't get into it. I had that problem. My mother used to have an MG midget, but when I was much younger. And I once got into it, but I couldn't get out of it because it was so small. My dad used to go to the ashtray on 4 wheels because she used to smoke all the time. It was very funny.
Speaking of cars, just quickly, there was a Lamborghini. I wish I'd sent you the picture, Pooch. There was a Lamborghini
I saw your tweet about that.
Parked outside our house on Saturday. And my 5-year-old started sweet-talking the owner. The owner told him it cost £300,000 for this amazing blue Lamborghini.
Yeah,
really
it was
amazing.
a pretty cool-looking car.
Yeah, and then he let my kid in the car. Ludo was walking with his trainers all over the seat, and I was just laughing. He touched every single lever. He tried out every single thing.
Did he let him start it?
It's not like a normal car.
No.
And it was really low down, really tiny.
You can't drive them.
Amazing.
You can't drive them. I mean, people buy them and crash them.
How funny to be driving that at 20 miles an hour through London.
Over speed bumps.
That thing,
There was a guy who used to live in my street.
Amazing car.
A guy who used to live in my street who had one, not as nice as that, but slightly older. And I watched it once going over speed bumps, and it just scrapes
because
the speed
it
bump.
doesn't have any...
It's horrible.
It's too low.
Yeah, it really is. I'll have to watch that tomorrow. But anyway, listen, it's late. You've probably got to get going.
I do, in a Lamborghini, if only.
If there was somebody waiting in a Lamborghini, I'm sure. And well, if you've got Mike's haircut, it's off Phil Oakey from the Human League. Don't you want me, baby? Yeah. You were standing at the... No, I'm not going to do the whole song. Anyway, listen, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for being so gracious about your win and not gloating.
I mean, I had to practically kind of... It's worse than getting Starmer out of number 10, getting a tenner out of you.
Yeah, well, at least you've got it,
How do you in a
I would
thingy
say
lock?
put it in a box. Put it in a box and
Okay.
give it back to me on June 21st.
But if I win on June 21st, it's 50, and that'll go straight to the Green Plums Brigade.
Yeah, buy some hard pears with
I
it.
will.
Rock hard pears,
Thank you.
to be honest. Thank you very much indeed. I guess it's time we should get some news. Is Edward Hughes in today? Let's get Edward Hughes with the news.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. Pathetic Starmer faces intense pressure to survive after Labour's heavy losses in last week's local, Scottish and Welsh elections. Reform UK made major gains, Plaid Cymru looks set to lead a minority Welsh government, and the SNP claimed victory in Scotland. The Dalek will deliver a speech today promising bolder action and pleading with Labour MPs not to trigger a leadership contest. Yeah, right. As senior figures like the Ginger Growler and Mandelson Chum West Streeting are reportedly eyeing bids. Health officials are racing to contain a hantavirus outbreak linked to a cruise ship carrying British nationals, with army medics parachuted to remote Tristan da Cunha for a suspected case. Ooh, I'm scared. Politics dominates as the PM fights for his future. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Edward Hughes there with the news. Thank you very much indeed. We've got a big show for you coming up. We're going to speak to Catherine McBride. She'll have plenty to say, of course, about the... Pooch is going to come brush my hair. I'm not sure if it will work. Will it? Does that work?
Better, isn't it?
I think so. I don't know why it's gone up at one side. I've always thought my head's actually a bit wonky.
Close your eyes, Mike.
And all right, close my eyes. But I already did that. I think that's why it went weird, right? Because if you put too much in, yeah, it's definitely wonky.
It's a ponytail.
Anyway, never mind. We're not here for the beer, as we say. We're not here because we look incredibly beautiful. Letter bomb hairstyle, that's a bit harsh. Listen, I'm going to go through the show like this. We've got Chris Williamson coming on. You might remember him. He was one of Jeremy Corbyn's mates from back in the day. I don't think he's in the Labour Party anymore. Sophie Corcoran's here. Frank Farady's coming on. Ann Widdecombe, of course. Lance Foreman is going to be here. Dr. Claire Craig will be speaking to us about this new virus that's coming all the way from that cruise ship in the Mediterranean, which is a rat virus of some kind. People being flown into Manchester. And Alan Cook at 9:30 to talk us through Reform's big win, of course, at the weekend, where they became, basically the biggest party in local government. And the Tories had really, really bad weekend as well. Should we do another couple of quick clips before we go any further? How about Hilary Benn? Here's Hilary Benn, which pretty much sums up what's wrong with the Labour government and the Labour Party. Have a look.
Keir Starmer was elected with a 5-year mandate, and quite properly, he intends to see it through. What is
but it's not going very well, that's the point.
Well, the point is this is a difficult time, and I understand that, and I'm not pretending otherwise. But look at the world in which the government is trying to do its job. Look at the conflicts in the Gulf. Look at what has been happening in Ukraine. And I work with Keir Starmer very closely. He is a serious politician for serious times, and the alternative is to go back to what the Tories did. They had 5 prime ministers in 8 years, what I call and the next syndrome, and that did the country no good whatsoever. And the answer to the problems we face is not to change the Prime Minister, but to apply ourselves with more determination to the task of bringing about change for the lives of the people of the whole of the United Kingdom, and that is what we're determined to do under Keir Starmer's leadership.
So, here we are. 24 hours to save the world. Is that what they used to say? Anything can happen in the next 24 hours? That was Thunderbirds, I think. Well, anything can happen, literally, in the next 24 hours. As we've seen this morning, the headlines say it all. Streeting and Rayner are ready for Starmer's fall, basically, on the Daily Mail. The Prime Minister fights to save his skin, page 1 of the Times. Streeting ready to be Prime Minister in the Telegraph. Prime Minister plots to rip up Brexit on the Express. Labour rivals circle Starmer, says The Guardian. The bottom line here is that basically nobody is listening to the people. We've got a collection of politicians in Parliament, a collection of politicians in the Labour government, cabinet ministers. They're not even having a cabinet meeting today, despite the fact that there has been a massive vote collectively of no confidence in Keir Starmer last Thursday at the local elections. Not just in England, but also in Wales, where Plaid Cymru have taken control of the Senedd, effectively, and in Scotland, where the SNP have taken control pretty much again, not quite without with a complete majority. But Reform have done well both in Wales and in Scotland. They were saying yesterday, at the end of the day, they are now the only proper unionist party in Britain. The Tories have all but fallen away in Wales and Scotland. Labour are no longer a force to be reckoned with in Wales and Scotland. So what does that mean for Britain? Because I've got 4 flags here, which were sent in to me, I'm very happy to say, by Betty Friend, who's a good friend of the show. She's watched it from the very beginning. She says, I know you have 2 union flags, but I thought it would be nice if you had the flags of the 4 home nations. So thank you, Betty, for that. So we've got Scotland, obviously. There we are. We've got England, obviously. We've got Wales, obviously. And one that not everybody knows, but they should know, is the Red Hand of Ulster, which is that one. We'll put those all behind me in various different locations so that you can have the flags of all 4 nations. So thank you, Betty, for that. And also thank you to Cindy, who sent us in a lovely England tie. She sent 2 in, one for me, one for Pooch, with a handkerchief. But anyway, back to the reality of where we are, right? Because, as I said to Emma Wolf just now, This is the end game. I know that people will say to me, but you've been saying this since the summer of 2024. Yes, I have. I said Starmer wouldn't last the course, and so it is proving to be true. However, we just saw Hilary Benn there talking about how Keir Starmer was elected for 5 years, and so he's going to see that term out. Well, no, he wasn't elected for 5 years. He was elected as part of a Labour government who were able to form a government because they got the most votes in an election where everybody hated the Tories. Now, he happened to be the leader of the party. That does not mean that he has absolute squatters' rights to stay in Downing Street, number 10, for the rest of the term, right? His own party have turned on him. Catherine West is going to get up later on today after he's made his useless, mealy-mouthed, ghastly, hopeless speech, and she's going to say, we need a timetable for when you're going to leave, right? And I believe that that will come. I believe that that will happen, and I believe that by the end of today, you will start to see the signs of a timetable being drawn up, and for Keir Starmer to finally actually understand that he needs to go. Because believe it or not, he actually gave an interview at the weekend to The Observer in which he said that he wanted to stay in power for 10 years. 10 years. I mean, he hasn't even got 10 minutes, this guy. The King's speech is coming out on Wednesday. God knows what King Charles is going to say about my government wants to do this and my government wants to do that. Because my government, as it has become known, has no longer got the faith of the British people. The British people voted at the weekend and they voted in very big numbers against Labour. Hev Chip there says the King needs to dissolve Parliament. Wouldn't that be great if he sat down after having been in the robing room and sat there and just said, I'm not going to read this out because it's a crock of nonsense, right? Philip says, quite rightly, Starmer is as useful as a one-legged man at an arse-kicking party. Yeah, I'm sure he's been to a few of those. The point is, this government no longer has a mandate to run the country. This government is out of ideas. It's ruining the economy. It's already ruined our armed forces. It's already ruined the NHS and made it worse than it was when they got in. The ridiculous situation on the border now is a joke. We've got more and more people, thousands more people coming into the country than there were before. Everything has turned to crap, basically. 163,000 jobs are going to go. We've got no international reputation. We are now looked upon as a country where Americans don't want to come because they're worried that they won't have freedom of speech and they might get locked up for a tweet. That's how bad it is. Shall we talk to Lance Foreman? Yeah. Lance Foreman's here, former member of the Brexit Party, of course, and Tory. I'm not sure how I should say your affiliation is these days. Lance, very good morning to you.
Very good morning to you, Mike.
Are you affiliated with the Tories anymore or not really?
Well, I'm a huge supporter of Kemi Badenoch, actually. I think she's, she's passionate, she's eloquent, she's intelligent, and I think she's a change from the leadership that we've had in the Tories for the last 15, 16 years. You know, I'm seeing a touch of Thatcher there, actually, and back in the 70s, everybody said, when Ted Heath sort of lost the election and Labour swept to power, people were saying that's the end of the Tories. But he had a woman in his cabinet who was the education secretary called Margaret Thatcher. And 5 years later, she came along, swept aside everything that had been done up until then, changed everything, and we had the greatest post-war prime minister we've ever had. It's very easy to write off the Tories because they were so useless for the last 14 or 15 years, but so much depends on the leadership and whether there's a change of philosophy. I see a glimmer of that in Kemi Badenoch, I have to say.
Fair enough, and I think she's a decent enough leader, and I think she's a very intelligent woman, and I've interviewed her several times, and I like her. However, it didn't really cut through much at the weekend, did it, in the local elections, or certainly in Wales and Scotland. I mean, one of the things that Nigel Farage said at the weekend, and so did Richard Tice, is that Reform are really now the only unionist party worth a fag end in Wales and Scotland, because the other two are kind of on the wane.
Well, true to some extent. The Reform did do amazingly well, but actually probably not even quite as well as they might have expected. And the Tories didn't do well, but they actually did better than expected. Local elections are protest votes. So people do tend to vote in a more extreme way than they might do at a general election. But the Tory vote to a great extent held up, particularly in London, it held up pretty well. And I don't think that the Tories under Kemi Badenoch are written off quite yet. I think the next few years will be interesting. I was in the Brexit Party, so I was very much part of that whole crew. And when I was in Europe as an MEP, there were 29 of us. We were the biggest single party in Europe, actually. It was quite funny that we were the ones that wanted to leave and yet the biggest party. All 29 of us agreed on one thing and one thing only, and that was that we needed to leave the EU. But we couldn't really agree on much else. There were Thatcherites in the party like me, and there were socialists, and it was a real hodgepodge. And I do have that fear about reform at the moment. They're collecting people from all walks of life and from all political affiliations. And yes, everybody agrees on immigration, everybody agrees on scrapping net zero, but on economics, I do have worries that reform are all over the place. They're pro-nationalisation, that they've sort of U-turned on their support for the welfare state. There's no real underlying economic philosophy. And the Tories were like that. And, I do think Kemi Badenoch is a believer in the small state and Thatcherite free market economics. But again, it's early days. There's 3 years potentially until the next election. We'll have to see.
Well, let's hope not. I mean, how long before Starmer finally walks the walk, do you think? Because,
Well, that's true.
Judging by the papers this morning, this week surely is the week that he, at least if he doesn't leave, he puts a timetable out for when he's going to leave.
I think he'll have to be dragged out of there. He has no idea what's going on. He just doesn't know what's going on in the economy. He doesn't know what's going on anywhere at all. And I think they're just going to have to drag him out of there. I don't know when that'll be. It could be in the next week or two, it could be in the summer. But the question is, if he goes, who else is there?
Yeah.
There's no one better in the party that you could replace him with. So, for me, I'd almost rather he stay there because at least, well, I say what he believes. He doesn't believe in anything.
No.
But there's no one better. Whoever
I can't
comes
stand it
along,
though. I meet people every day now, Lance, and people message me every day who say we actually now viscerally hate this man. Every time his face comes up, every time his voice is heard, he's just so annoying and so useless that you just think, how can one man, elicit that kind of hatred? But he does. People really hate him.
He does. We have a leader that doesn't lead. We have somebody that believes in absolutely nothing whatsoever. He comes up with policies. He then has to U-turn on them because he realizes they can't work. What has he done now? Bringing in Gordon Brown? What's that all about? Gordon Brown literally destroyed our economy. Apart from selling off the gold, there was that note at the end of his premiership. We've run out of money.
As other people pointed out, he was also the guy that first brought back Peter Mandelson into government so that he could sit there as business secretary and send, confidential emails to Jeffrey Epstein about what he might want to spend his money on.
I know. Starmer is so out of touch. He's so out of touch with, just understanding how things work, how the economy works, but also understanding what people want. He's just totally out of touch. But I don't know, as I say, I don't know who else there is that could replace him. Yes, we do need a general election. Are Reform ready for a general election? Are the Tories ready for a general election? Probably not. I think it still will take a little bit more time for people to formulate their ideas and what they're going to do once they get to power. But Labour are certainly finished for another generation. There's no question about that. I can't see many people actually thinking they're a serious party of government anymore.
No, and one of the things you would, I imagine, say about Kemi Badenoch was that she was at the march yesterday, the march against anti-Semitism, and as was indeed Richard Tice from Reform. Labour sort of put out some junior minister, I think, didn't they?
Yes, Pat McFadden, who got booed off stage.
Although, I suppose in fairness, he's quite a major part of their government. It's not like he's that junior, is he?
Well, I just think people were so unhappy with the way anti-Semitism has spawned under this government because they haven't stepped in and done anything It's all talk. Our thoughts and prayers are with you after every single disaster, but they've done absolutely nothing. So I think people are feeling, really unhappy with our government currently on the anti-Semitism front. Kemi was outstanding. I mean, this is not stuff she needs to be taught. She feels it, lives it, breathes it. She was excellent. Richard Tice, yes, gave an excellent speech, and he made a point that none of the others made, which was very good, which is that we need to do something about education, because anti-Semitism on campus and even at schools, it is really appalling. And the problem is, if that's what students are thinking now, they're going to carry on having those views later on. So you have to get people at that sort of formative stage in their life and make them understand that racism is not acceptable, whether it's anti-black, anti-Muslim, anti-Jewish, or any type of racism. But anti-Jewish racism seems to get a pass, and that's just totally unacceptable. So the university, what Richard Tice said about clamping down at universities is really important.
Did you just lose me there?
I've got you, but that's why I've lost you. Yeah, you went.
I said Keir Starmer. No, I said Keir Starmer says an awful lot of things are going to happen. That he's going to do an awful lot of things, which he ends up often not doing.
Well, he hasn't quite worked out whether he's going to U-turn it, so maybe he's sort of mulling it over for a bit. He has said that he's planning to prescribe the IRGC in the next Parliament, but why not do it right away? The Muslim Brotherhood too. Why do we still have the Iranian ambassador in the UK? Would we? When World War II started, the German ambassador was kicked out on day 2. The Iranian ambassador should not be in the UK any longer. He needs to be kicked out. There is so much that needs to be done. On the sort of international stage, just even in the UK, it's anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish racism is rife throughout the unions, the NHS, our education department, as I've mentioned, in the Home Office, in certain sections of the police. We all know what happened with the West Midlands police and not allowing Israeli fans because they didn't want to upset the Muslim community in that part of the country. We're just letting it run riot. And of course, my pet topic, which I've discussed with you before, Mike, is within the BBC. They have been. What they've been doing is for the last 25 years, they've just been demonizing and delegitimizing Israel. And the new anti-Semitism is about delegitimizing Israel because, people think that if you can separate Israel from the Jews, then you'll weaken you'll weaken the Jewish population. But Judaism is inseparable from Zionism, from Israel. The prayer that Jewish people say every single day, twice a day, Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel. We are the people of Israel. That's what Jews are. For people like Zach Polanski to say, he's an anti-Zionist Jew makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. He clearly doesn't understand his own religion. He might have been born Jewish, but that's as far as it goes. He has no understanding or comprehension of it whatsoever.
No, indeed. Zach Polanski is another kettle of fish altogether. We could spend another hour talking about him, but we've got to run. Lance, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Lance
Always
Foreman,
a pleasure, Mike.
Talking to us there from the Homestead, where he is in London. Runs a very, very successful fish business, of course, as well, as you might say. We've got plenty to do. Lots of you getting involved. We've got lots of you watching this morning as well. Thank you very much indeed. Mike and Pooch says, Cindy, wear your ties with pride, sent with love. Thank you very much indeed, Cindy. We've got those. Lots of you have got plenty to say about Keir Starmer and what on earth he's doing and what he's thinking. Super chat here from Tanya says, Starmer said he's going to bring in Sadiq Khan. To do what? What, to ruin the rest of the country as he's ruined London? Mike, is it possible to have a trigger warning for Beth Rigby? Her voice is on a par with Starmer's, says Mr. Woodward. Yeah, I know. She's dreadful, isn't she? She really is. And she's been showing her face constantly now as a kind of a lick spittle to the government, trying to kind of say, well, Keir Starmer's trying his hardest. He's very angry. He's this, he's that, he's the other. He just needs to go. Let's talk to Chris Williamson, who's our next guest now. He's deputy leader of George Galloway's Workers' Party. He used to be in the Labour Party, of course, a long time ago. Chris, very good morning to you. Welcome to the new Mike Graham Show.
Morning. How are you?
Yeah, very well indeed. I don't know what you make of Keir Starmer. I imagine not much, but what's your thesis on when he finally walks out? What has to happen? I mean, a lot of people said to me when I said in summer of 2024, this guy won't last. He doesn't have enough going on. He doesn't really believe in anything. He's useless at everything that he does. I was told then, the Labour Party doesn't have any mechanism to get rid of people, but it turns out they do, and they can.
Well, they can, but it's very difficult. And you need 20% of the Parliamentary Labour Party, which equates to around 81 MPs, to sign the nomination forms for an alternative candidate. So that's quite difficult, though I understand that 50-odd MPs have declared their dissatisfaction publicly with Keir Starmer and seem willing to sign the nomination for an alternative candidate if one should come forward. I think Catherine West is potentially going to put herself forward today as a stalking horse, which might make other potential candidates break cover. But I think, as your previous guest was saying, I didn't agree with much of what he said, but one of the things I think he said was that who are the alternatives? Are there any real alternatives that would be any better? And I frankly don't think they are, because I mean, really, the soul of the Labour Party has been expelled by the likes of Keir Starmer. So, the sort of alternative candidate that, might actually be able to win over the general public, because I agree with you, Mike, that, there is a real visceral hatred of Keir Starmer, more significant than anything I've ever known in my entire time in politics. And I first started getting active back in 1976. So I've never known anything like it. But the difficulty is, as I say, there isn't really anybody that would be any better, other than perhaps Andy Burnham. But the way for Andy Burnham back is very, very difficult. I mean, obviously he's not an MP, so he's not eligible at the moment to stand. If somebody were prepared perhaps to stand down for him, he'd then have to win a by-election. I mean, that's no easy feat, because the Labour brand has been significantly tardy. So even though somebody like Andy Burnham, who I think does command a bit more support in the general public, might actually struggle to win a by-election now. But obviously, it's a difficult time. But I think, frankly, it's an existential crisis for the Labour Party. I think there's a real chance now that Starmer not just killed the left inside the Labour Party, he's killed the Labour Party. And,
I said that last week, that his legacy, people said, all prime ministers want to have a legacy of one kind or another. His legacy might well be that he killed the Labour Party. That's what I think, because I think, you've seen some people, sort of, shall we say, sidling off to go to your party, not in massive numbers. And I don't mean your party by your party, I mean your party.
No, you mean Jeremy Corbyn.
But also your party as well has siphoned a few away as well, the Workers' Party. And then you've got the Greens now siphoning people away on the left. And he seems to have been able to upset the people on the left of the party and the right of the party at the same time. It's quite extraordinary, really.
It is extraordinary. And, some of his supporters, their dwindling band, talk about this unprecedented landslide majority that he secured, but it was a loveless landslide, let's remember. No political party has ever won a general election with a bare majority, or even a minority, being able to form a minority administration with less than 34% of the vote, which is what he secured. The only reason that Labour won such a big majority was that the Conservative vote was split between Reform and the Conservative Party, and Labour came through the middle. I mean, the MPs were winning constituencies with much smaller votes than the previous candidates had secured when they lost. So, it's never, it's the whole foundation was founded on sand. And I know some of the strategists inside, I spoke to some of them actually inside the Labour Party, were very pleased with themselves that, they've managed to secure this majority, that Corbyn, may have got a bigger vote, but he still lost. But it's worth remembering that Starmer secured, I think it's around 500,000 fewer votes than Corbyn achieved in 2019, which was described as the worst result since 1935 for the Labour Party. And it was just distorted by this first past the post electoral system. I mean, that's another thing which I think does need some attention. I think we need an alternative form of voting, because I think a lot of people, in large swathes of the country, just feel their vote isn't worth anything, because it's either a strong Conservative, although obviously all bets are off now, but generally speaking, they feel that in certain parts of the country, political party they support, if it's very much, down in the doldrums in that part of the country, they just feel it's not worth voting. So I think that does need some attention. That might encourage more people to participate. Because at the end of the day, look, democracy should be about giving people a choice. And part of the problem is that all of the political parties, I mean, that's from Labour, Conservative and Reform, fundamentally agree on the kind of neoliberal economics and on foreign policy too. They're pretty much on board with this sort of imperialist stance that this government has taken in regards to foreign adventures overseas, or supporting foreign adventures by the United States of America and Israel.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is part of the interesting development that we've seen, because Reform used to be in favour of proportional representation, but now they're not, because obviously they were helped by the fact that first past the post was a good thing. And a lot more people came out to vote in this local election than before, and many of them came out because they wanted to vote against Labour. It seems as though we've now got a country where people vote against things rather than for them. That's
a tragedy, isn't it? I mean, and as I say, democracy ought to be about giving people that choice. I mean, whenever people think of Jeremy, I was a big supporter of Jeremy Corbyn, but I think the sort of agenda that he was putting forward, I mean, people described it as radical, Mike, but frankly, it was only really returning to the sort of economy, the sort of society that I grew up with in the 1960s and 70s. I left school in 1972, and we had full employment, we had free university education, we had a large section of public housing. I mean, living standards were better. I mean, young working class people could aspire to buy their own homes and so on. And all that's kind of gone, really, or large sections of it have gone. And unfortunately, with Margaret Thatcher came in, and she was very much committed to the kind of different approach to the economy. The so-called post-war consensus was slaughtered really by Margaret Thatcher, and she was influenced by the likes of Friedrich Hayek and Milton Friedman and their economic, sort of a recipe for running the economy. And so they set about this privatisation agenda. And so what's happened is that, our public services, our utilities have been given over to the private sector to make profit. And profit, at the end of the day, the board members have a fiduciary duty to maximise the profit for the company. And in my opinion, public services should be about public service, not generating private profit. And Paul Jeremy, I think, was talking about was kind of returning to that sort of mixed economy. And when you went around the country and spoke to people, I don't know if you saw Giles Brandreth looking for secret socialists in the capital of the home counties, and it was asking people whether they supported regulating the private rented sector, bringing the railways back into public ownership, scrapping tuition fees, and various sort of key policies of Jeremy Corbyn. Almost universally, people were agreeing, and he then was saying to them, well, you're a secret socialist then. They were saying, well, what do you mean by that? And he had a clipboard and he switched it around, there's a big picture of Jeremy on it, and they sort of stepped back and recalled. Some of them did and said, oh dear, well, maybe I made a mistake.
But I think the thing with people is they're fed up with stuff that doesn't work, and so whatever makes it work, they'll go for it. I mean, like you, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and I mean, some of the nationalised industries in the 70s were bloody awful, and then they had to be privatised, but then it didn't get any better by being privatised. And I think
they didn't get any better. I mean, you say that they were awful, and maybe there were things that could have been improved, but the point is they gave the dignity of employment to large swathes of the community. Now, lots of those people that worked in those industries, many of them are either working in some of them will be retired, obviously, but their equivalents, if you like, are in the precarious employment. 0-hour contracts, low pay, and so on. And so, I mean, I think it could have been improved. And people like, Derek Robinson, the convener at Leyland, British Leyland. I mean, he was demonised by the mainstream media. But what he was calling for was, he said that if we were going to compete as a volume car manufacturer in this country, there needed to be a massive investment in the industry. Anyway, he got demonised and eventually was removed by his own members, which was a tragedy for him. Yeah. And was it his name? Was it Edwards? Was it the guy that came in? And now, if you think about it, Mike, I mean, after the Second World War, Japan was building British cars under license. Now it's the other way around. Yeah. I mean, all those industries that we were famous for.
I mean, we could do this all day, which we'll have to continue at some other point because we haven't got the time today. But I mean, I remember when Ford Fiestas were going to be built in Britain. And Ford came and said to the government at the time, if you give us this break, we'll build them in the Midlands. If you don't give it to us, we'll put them in Spain. And we didn't give it to them, and they ended up going to Spain. So it was kind of coincided really with the birth of of global international car companies, didn't it? Where they had the power to tell a government, no thanks, we'll go over there. And I mean, that was part of the problem as well.
It was. I mean, but globalization, I mean, this was something that Margaret Thatcher was very keen on, and Ronald Reagan. I mean, there was a sort of, they were elected around about the same time, Thatcher 79, Reagan in 1980. Because up until then, basically everybody were kind of Keynesian. I think, was it Richard Nixon, I think, said we're all Keynesian now. And so that's been a disaster, for the United States of America. I mean, talk about the Rust Belt states. I mean, these were states that, used to be renowned for manufacturing and heavy industry. Much of that has been offshored, as has happened in this country. Lots of the jobs that we used to do in this country have been offshored. So what I would like to see, what the Workers' Party calls for really, is a renaissance in our manufacturing industry. I don't think we can get back to where we were in the 60s and 70s, but I do think there is some scope to onshore, if you like, some of the industries that we have offshored. But also a big investment in our public services again. I mean, there is a massive social care crisis in this country, and we should be, in my opinion, providing free social care. I mean, people work all their life and may have bought their council house or whatever, and then find that when they get to the end of their life, they're having to sell that in order to pay their care fees. I mean, that can't be right, in my opinion. And I think we need to have public services that are dedicated to public service. I mean, and I'm not saying we should nationalise everything. I don't think that works. I mean, we saw that in the Soviet Union. I think that was a mistake that they made. I mean, there was an engine for economic growth, but lots of things went wrong. You can't centralise everything, but I think there are certain things that the public sector is best placed to deliver for us. And there are certain things where the private sector, is best placed. I mean, frankly, I think China's probably got it right in terms of how they run the economy. I guess they've got a mixed economy, but they make.
You were doing fine until you got to China.
Anyway, listen. Just bear with me, Mike, because China.
I can't though. I've got loads of people to talk to, Chris.
I want to just briefly say though that China's economic growth has been very successful. I mean, and they've transformed the country. All I'm saying is the economic approach that they've taken with this mixed economy, but they make sure that the private sector works in the interests of the country, not for themselves.
But it also helps when you can frighten the public into.
Well, I think there's a lot of propaganda about that, to be honest with you.
Well,
I think they've improved living standards.
We'll have to continue this at another time. Chris Williamson there. Thank you. Good to talk to you. Likes life in China. Thinks it's better than it is here. Well, listen, you can make any argument you like, but that was interesting. We'll come back to Chris Williamson again, I think, for more of the same at a later date. But I'm terribly sorry to have to say, I've been keeping Sophie Corcoran waiting, who's here. Sophie, good to see you. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show. We'll come to you in a second. We've got a couple of super chats to do. Have we done them all? Oh, okay. Here's one from Dan who says, we've got a much bigger number of people in the country now. It is not rocket science. Well, that's true too. But we'll talk about all of those things coming up. Ann Widdecombe's coming up as well later on. Dr. Claire Craig, Alan Cook, Frank Farady's here too. Sophie Corcoran, though, to tell us about a lawsuit that she's taking against a company or the 10,000 Interns Foundation, I should say. They were running. Sophie, very good to see you. I haven't seen you for a long time. They call you in the Guardian a GB News commentator. I don't know if you still are a GB News commentator, but I don't think they mean it in a nice way, do they?
No, they certainly don't. And I must say, I actually probably do more BBC Radio 2 and LBC now, actually.
There you go.
So I've pivoted more to their stream, actually.
Okay, so tell us about this story. You wanted to get an internship from this organisation called 10,000 Interns Foundation, right? And they said you couldn't apply. Why?
Because I'm white. And it is something that we've seen, not just with this one, but we've seen it with MI5, MI6 and GCHQ, and we've seen it with the BBC, and we've seen it with all sorts of places. This just is what is happening now. And I finished university last June, and you look at new jobs, and every single job that you want to try and get, graduate job, is some form of diversity scheme. And it is just impossible for British young white people now, and I've had enough of it, so I'm taking them to court, because the politicians haven't dealt with it. So I'm going to.
Yeah, well, good for you. And I mean, you do see an awful lot of this. I was talking to somebody who's got a son of about 21, 22, and he's just come out of university, and he had a friend who did a very good degree at somewhere like Durham University, which I think was where you were, wasn't it? Engineering degree, applied for something like 125 jobs, never got an interview, had a conversation with a friend of his, and he said, well, here's where you're doing it wrong. What you need to do is put down, when it says, gender, just put non-binary. And as soon as he did that, he started to get interviews.
Yeah.
And that can't be right, can it?
No, of course. And my biggest issue with these schemes is The Guardian attacked me by saying that I'm going after a charity that helps disadvantaged groups. It doesn't help disadvantaged groups. It just favours black people.
Yeah.
Because the fact of the matter is that just because you're black doesn't mean that you're disadvantaged.
No.
It's not a guarantee.
It's just kind of condescending.
Well,
though,
yeah,
isn't
and just because you're white doesn't mean that you don't have any disadvantage whatsoever in your life. I mean, you could have been brought up on free school meals. You could have been a single parent. You could have been like me and you have some form of disability. And they don't take any of that into account. You know, it doesn't matter if you're disadvantaged if you're white because you're not black. And that is essentially what they're trying to push. This has got nothing to do with preventing disadvantaged groups from accessing opportunity, because the biggest disadvantaged group that we have in education right now, and for the last decade, may I add, has been working class white people.
Yeah.
And that's exactly who these schemes are designed to harm, because they're built on this nonsensical idea of white privilege that we know factually does not exist. And the way that some people are saying, well, it's legal, and this is something we're trying to do. I have written a private member's bill. It is with an MP, with a KC, to change the law. This court case is going to give us an indication of the interpretation of the law, because I don't think it's being interpreted correctly. What it was originally designed to do was separate two applicants of equal merit. What these schemes are doing is just banning people from applying straight right. It's a blanket ban. They don't even consider the merits of all of the applicants. They don't give them equal weight and consideration, and they determine that by race, which is racist. Bottom line, it's positive discrimination. This is not positive action. But we want to see how the law is going to be interpreted, and either two things are going to happen. Either I win, which I should do, and then I'm going to turn around to every other business and say, we are going to come after you as well if you want to do these racist practices. Or the other thing we do is prove that the law is racist and that it has to change, and change it we will.
Because a lot of people say that to me whenever we do it occasionally. We'll do it on Plank of the Week, or you highlight some job application form where it says, we will only accept applications from members of ethnic minorities or whatever. And everybody always says to me, well, if you did it the other way round and said that these jobs are only available for white people, it would be considered racist. So how is it not considered racist? How has it even made its way into some kind of law?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is absolutely racist. There's no doubt about that. And my favourite thing that's been happening over the last few weeks is that I am the one who is somehow being called racist, despite the fact that I'm the one who is quite literally campaigning for skin colour to not be a factor in employment at all, as I would do if there were white-only jobs. I have the same reaction to black-only jobs, because if there was white-only jobs, the windows would be smashed up of the employment places offering it. But so this is what we're trying to see. Is the law actually racist, or are the companies interpreting it in the wrong way, which I suspect they are? But if we don't and we prove the law is racist, then the law will have to change. But either way, I will win. I don't care. I can probably never get a job for the rest of my life, but I know 100% in this that I am doing what is right. This is a fight for basic meritocracy, a fight for basic fairness, and a fight that politicians have abandoned for too long. So I'm going to do it. And we will win, Mike. DEI will end. I will end DEI in this country, and I don't care what it takes. But this is the first step to doing that, and hopefully people will support me in this, because this is just about fairness, about equal opportunity, and about providing an opportunity, especially for white people who have been abandoned for so long because of an ideological accusation of white privilege that doesn't exist, that factually doesn't exist. And we need to end it, because we need to make sure that things are done fairly in this country. If you are the best person for the job, then you should get the job. And it's the same thing that's happening in universities. Do you remember that case with that young lad from the Oxford Union that said that things about Charlie Kirk?
Yes.
Well, he got into Oxford on something like ABB.
Yeah.
No other white person is ever getting into Oxford on ABB. It simply won't happen. I mean, the basic criteria for Oxford was AAA. There were white people with my sister applied for Oxford. She got 3 A stars. She and I both played football for Leyton Orient in the Women's National League. We had jobs, we ticked all the boxes. She got rejected from Oxford on 3 A stars. So how on earth did this guy get in with ABB? It is not right. It is racism, and we have to end it. We're going back, and this is a country that I want to build, that I want any political party to build. And I will offer any MP. We have a written private members bill, written by a KC. If you want it, I will give it to you. We are going to build a country surrounded by basic fairness. That if you are the best person for the job, then you will get the job. If you're the best person for the university place, then you will get the university place. If you work hard, you will receive a reward. If you don't work, you will never be better off than those who do. This is the country that I want to build, and it is a country that is built around fairness, around hard work, around meritocracy, and that it is not unfair to suggest that talent and hard work should define success. That is not an unfair way of defining success.
No, and you're only asking to be able to apply for the vacancy, aren't you? It's not like you're saying, I need to be given the job.
No, exactly.
You're just saying you want an equal opportunity to actually see somebody and be questioned about it and be interviewed about it. But the Bar Council's involved in this as well, and I find the Bar Council to have become a very woke organisation, and the whole legal profession actually to have become a very woke organisation. We've been reading in the past few weeks about solicitors who have been falsely representing members of various different minority countries to get access to British right to remain or leave to remain here by pretending to be gay. You know, now that is illegal, and they've been arrested. And these are people who are supposed to be upholding the law. So what chance have we got here?
Well, exactly. And this is why going after the Bar Council is so important, as well as the likes of GCHQ, because this is, the foundational principle in this country is equality before the law. So if we don't even have basic equality in applying for schemes to accessing to becoming a lawyer, and there is racism in that self perpetuated by the Bar Council themselves, then how can we ever trust our legal professionals to give us a fair hearing, to give us equality under law, to know that we're not going to be discriminated against? Because that is the exact practice that they're engaging in. It's the same as our national security. We know full well that there are people in our national security now that are undermining our national security, and there is a high chance that they would have got in on some form of diversity scheme. These are things that are extremely important to the fabric of our country, whether it's equality before the law, national security, or even journalism, for example. These are things that need to be fair, and they need to be right, and they're not right. And it's something that we're going to change, and it's something that I am going to change, and I will win. And I will tell you right here, I will win.
And how long do you think the process will take?
I mean, we've seen a lot of difficulties with tribunals. Obviously, they're trying to scrap jury trials, and I think there's probably going to be quite a bit of a backlog. I would say it's probably at least another year or so. But we believe that we have the right side of the argument. I've gotten a lot of support from people. I'm working absolutely insane hours at work to try and fund this myself, because I absolutely believe it's the right thing to do. But it might be a long process, but I quite simply do not care how long it takes. In my lifetime, I will end DEI, and I'm doing so not just for myself, not just for the opportunities that I've lost, but also the opportunities that people in my generation have lost and those that are beneath me, in order to make sure that when I have children, they grow up in a country that is fair, and that they know that they can access whatever opportunities they like if they work hard and if they have talent, and for no other reason than that. So I don't care how long it takes. You know, we may lose this first one, but we're going to keep going, and I will keep going until eventually we get the law changed. Hopefully, when we have a new government, I think it may be sooner rather than later, hopefully,
hope so.
We will be able to persuade either Reform or the Conservative parties to withdraw the two parts of the Equality Act that even allow this conversation to be had. And that is what is written in the private members' bill that myself and the KC have written. So they have the materials and they have the resources to do that. I've provided them everything. All they need is the guts and the balls, and that's the only thing that I have at the minute that they don't.
Yeah, absolutely right. Brilliant. Well, good luck with it.
Thank you.
Sophie, have you got some kind of crowdfunder going on, or how's that all working?
Yes, I do have a crowdfunder. It's on my Twitter. I'll repost it because I've reposted it quite a lot. I'll repost it now on my X, and I'll send it to you as well, so that you can.
Yeah, we can put it out.
You can put it on all of your channels as well. But any funding is extremely grateful. Obviously, I'm trying to take on the bulk of it myself by working a lot of hours at work in addition to try and fund it myself. And all of the funds are handled by my legal team. I don't see an absolute penny of it. And if we exceed any of our goals, then I will make sure that any money that we've raised not only goes to fighting my case, but for going after other companies that are doing this as well. This is a battle that we are going to win, and hopefully we can win it together.
Brilliant. Sophie Corcoran, great to see you. Good luck with it.
I know.
We'd be very happy to help. When anybody else who wants to help, we'll put out all the various places you can find Sophie, and where you can find the crowdfunder and all the rest of it. But brilliant. Great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Best of luck. We'll see you when you get into the internship, and you can come back and tell us you won. Lots and lots of people got things to say. There it is. In fact, we'll tweet that out very shortly. Crowdjustice.com is where you find it. If you go looking through there, help me end the Bar Council's something, I'm sure would be in there. Coming up, help me end the Bar Council's anti-white scheme. I've just got it here. Crowdjustice.com is where you find it. So very good to see you. Thank you, Sophie. Frank Farady coming up. Ann Widdecombe's going to be here as well at some point soon. Basically, what a fantastic young lady, says Paula. You get a lot of praise from our viewers, and lots of people having good things to say. Well done, Sophie, says Lynn. And of course, we will be supporting you throughout the course of your campaign. As I said, we've got Ann Widdecombe to talk to coming up. Sophie's amazing. All the best to you, says Common Sense. Lots of you have got good things to say today, actually, because we've got loads of you watching, which is nice to see. We're about to embark upon 20 million views, by the way. We'd literally probably get there tomorrow. And I think now finally we've hit 160,000 subscribers as well. So that's all good. Westminster Council proclaimed a couple of years ago they won't employ white people, says Carol. I know. Well done, Sophie, for doing this, says Alison. This has given me hope for the future. This is the quality of our young women. Sophie is superb. Keep going and don't give up, says Jane. Well, absolutely. The thing is, right, we've got so many good things going on in this country, and unfortunately, thanks to this government and thanks to previous governments and the DEI system, a lot of things have not happened. And what we've got instead is a paralysed government, which is going to, hopefully change very soon. People will say what changes possibly could be made if Keir Starmer goes and Angela Rayner comes in, or Wes Streeting comes in, or even Ed Miliband comes in. Well, maybe nothing, but if nothing else, and this is where I think it's important to note, the future is always in our own hands. If we can remove Keir Starmer, then anything is possible, because Starmer thinks he wants to be in for the next 10 years. If it turns out that by the end of today, he's set out a timetable for his own departure, then that would be a massive victory for the people. And it would be a massive victory for this show, apart from anything else. And it would be a massive victory for all of you who went and took the time to vote on Thursday to make sure that the voting patterns were so changed that Labour got the fright of their lives, because they did. All you had to do was look at Bridget Phillipson's face yesterday. It was absolutely brilliant. Fantastic to see. Absolutely amazing. The front pages today are these. Streeting and Rayner's ready for Starmer's fall, says the Labour leadership bloodbath, front page of the Daily Mail. The Prime Minister is on the brink. A rebellion could seal his fate today. They say in an explosive intervention, Angela Rayner broke cover with an extraordinary statement eviscerating the Prime Minister's record in office. She also unveiled her hard-left prospectus for power and signalled an alliance with Andy Burnham by demanding that he be allowed to come back to Westminster. I mean, I love the arrogance of these people. He must be allowed to come back to Westminster. Well, hang on a minute. What if he doesn't win the by-election? Then he can't come back to Westminster. And in fact, then he won't have a job, either as the Mayor of Manchester or as a local MP. We've heard that Clive Lewis is one of the many Labour MPs who might give up his seat in order for Andy Burnham to get in. But what if he doesn't win it? Prime Minister fights to save his skin after Rayner's ultimatum, is the front page of the Times. The Prime Minister will attempt today to save his premiership by signalling that he is prepared to break his red lines and pursue much closer integration with the European Union. Well, that's in direct opposition to the people who voted in the referendum to leave the European Union. Surely to heavens, isn't it? Just ridiculous. Let's talk to Frank Farady, who's here with us now for the first time in a while. Frank, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Can you believe the arrogance of these people in government who seem to think that, the people don't matter, the people's voting patterns don't matter, and all that really matters is whether they can hang on to their jobs for as long as possible?
I know there seems to be this sense of entitlement, and the very idea that Andy Burnham is the savior of the Labour Party is that they don't really understand that the reason why Labour was rejected wasn't just because of one individual, the Prime Minister. It's because the party as a whole is made up of a lot of incompetent individuals. If you look at the cabinet, it's clearly lacking in leadership. If you look at them one by one, none of them are the kind of people you could trust to run this country.
And that is part of the problem. And also when you see, you wrote a piece for Spiked recently where you said that, the results of the local council elections on Thursday kind of show that the Brexit spirit is alive and well. The one thing that Starmer's promising to do in his speech today is to water down the Brexit deal, to basically go back into some kind of customs union, rejoin the single market, which is an entire kind of, opposition to what the referendum result was.
It is, and what's very interesting is that they seem to live in a world of their own. They don't really realize that in the real England, the real Britain, people are not going around saying, "Oh, I wish we haven't left the European Union." People aren't particularly interested in rejoining the European Union. It's a small class of people who have never forgiven the people for voting for Brexit. And what's very interesting is I spend a lot of time in Brussels. And in Brussels, all the people in the European Union Commission are continually laughing at the British government. They're saying that, look, they desperately want to join us. They want to become closer to us. If that's what they want to do, we're going to make them pay. And they've got this idea that Britain is going to be made to pay a lot of money for the privilege of having a closer relationship to the European Union.
Yeah, £1 billion a year, thank you very much indeed. And I thought when I read that story, it wasn't so much a conversation as it was Ursula von der Leyen telling Keir Starmer, well, the price for you to get access to these things that you want is £1 billion. Not because we get anything for that, but so that we can give it to countries that are worse off than we are. You know, I can't imagine there's many of them, because maybe we should be getting the money from the EU.
I know, it's very interesting, because I don't know how they made up that figure. They probably sat around, had a drink, and asked the question, how much should we make them pay? And somebody said 20 million, other one said 50 million.
Yeah.
And in the end, they said, how about $1 billion? That's a good, nice round figure. We'll do quite well out of that, thank you. And what do we get for that £1 billion? Nothing, other than the privilege of allowing our Prime Minister to sit next to Ursula von der Leyen. And I think the very fact that this is being considered as a serious sort of option indicates just how much the government has lost its way.
Oh yeah, because the big, I suppose, win for reform over the course of the weekend, starting on Thursday with the vote and then the council, the rest of it, is that, as you pointed out, many more reform voters in places that voted to leave the European Union. So, as you say, it's still very much a dividing factor in this country, and even in some of the areas that voted Remain, the reform vote was bigger than it had been.
It is, and what's very interesting is that if you look at the pattern since 2016, since Brexit, you can see the consolidation of a large group of people, millions of people who feel that, in a sense, the government is not really speaking for them. They're not being represented in Parliament. They don't trust any of the main duopoly, the Tories and the Labour Party, and they're desperately looking for a party that can, in a sense, give them a voice, allow them to be who they are, make them feel English or British. And I think one of the things that has come out of the local council election is that in the most unlikely places, people are beginning to feel this way. I mean, who would have imagined that reform would do so well in Wales, or even the fact that reform has managed to pick up a few seats in Scotland?
Yeah.
That indicates that there's something truly national about what the reform has accomplished. They are seen as the People's Party. It's not the Labour Party, but reform that has now assumed that particular role.
That's right. And of course, we're now seeing the pattern continuing in Scotland. We saw John Swinney coming out yesterday to say that I think today he's going to organise a meeting of all the parties apart from reform, and he's not going to talk to reform. And you just go, have you learned nothing at all about the way that this is going to work? Because the more that they seem to try to silence reform and put them in a box and call them racist and call their voters racist, their vote just gets bigger.
This is a very dangerous development, because if you ignore the aspirations of millions of people, and you argue that these voters, the people that voted for reform, are uneducated, stupid people, or people who are more than ready to believe in Nigel Farage's lies, if you have that kind of idea, then what you're basically saying is that the nation is so divided that something like almost half the population no longer counts. And to me, this is one of the most anti-democratic sort of approaches that I've seen for a very, very long time, because historically, the Tories and the Labour Party, when they were in government, still claimed to rule in the interest of every citizen. You can no longer argue that, because when you ignore reform and its voting base, you're no longer representing the interest of every British citizen, just the people that voted for you.
Yeah, exactly right. And they don't seem to have followed the way that it's all grown, because when you consider that, I think somebody pointed it out, that in the last local election, Reform managed to win a handful of councils and maybe a couple of dozen Reform councillors. They've now got thousands, which over the course of the last few years is extraordinary.
I know this is a very interesting development, because if you actually talk to people in the Labour camp or in the Conservative camp, they still have this idea that people that have voted for reform are voting as a matter of protest, that reform is a protest party. That's the expression they use all the time. They don't realize that the days of this just being a protest party, rather than a party that's actually serious about taking control of the country. That has changed. And they're still living like 15, 20 years ago, when they imagined that any party that's breaking the duopoly of Tories and Labour have got to be somehow marginal in a protest movement. And this is, to me, a very important development because it indicates that the political system no longer caters for everybody on an equal basis, but has now fragmented to the point at which there's two political systems where the parties are no longer talking to each other. And certainly where there's a very dangerous development of trying to impose a quarantine on the party with the largest number of supporters.
I mean, there's no question, is there, that this is the beginning of the end for the two-party system, and it could be the end altogether for the Labour Party. I mean, I was just saying to Chris Williamson earlier that, you know, maybe Keir Starmer's legacy will be that he helped to destroy the Labour Party.
Yeah, and he's doing a wonderful job in doing that. And what's very interesting is that the other lead contenders do not realize exactly what the problem is with the Labour Party, that the Labour Party is not able to offer a real alternative to the people of this country. They don't realize that the Labour Party has been singularly ineffective in recognizing what are the real issues that concern people in their everyday life. And in that sense, they have almost made themselves totally irrelevant. So in that sense, I think what we're now seeing is a gradual detachment of Labour, but also the Conservatives to some extent, gradual detachment of these parties from the everyday life, the people's everyday existence. And I think that's going to have some very important consequences, because it's very difficult to imagine how these two parties can regain a momentum that's associated with being a national party. If you look at their membership figures, it's falling and falling all the time. And therefore, they now have a situation where they lack a real base of support. They lack the individuals that can go out and campaign on a national basis. And to me, that indicates that something very, very new and very, very interesting is happening in Britain.
Absolutely right. And what do you think about what happened in Great Yarmouth? Because Great Yarmouth obviously was somewhere where Reform were conscious of the Rupert Lowe factor. Rupert Lowe stood a bunch of candidates and a load of councillors under a different banner, not Restore Britain, but Great Yarmouth First, I think it was called. But they won every single seat. And I know that Reform were hopeful that they could at least stop that from happening, but they couldn't. What significance do you think that has?
Well, I think it indicates that Rupert Lowe has got a very strong local base. There's no doubt about it. If you listen to people in Great Yarmouth, they very much identify with him as an individual. I think that potentially Restore can represent a major problem, because the danger is that even if they don't do all that well nationally, they can take away enough votes from Reform so that instead of winning, they come in a close second. I think that's a very real possibility. And what I'm really worried about is that Reform's success over the last 4 years has led to a situation where a lot of people on the right have adopted a very sectarian approach, where they think that they know better than anybody else. So because we're sure that we're better than anybody else, let's start a new party. And in many respects, the kind of sectarianism that used to be associated with the left may well have a negative impact on Reform and on the political conservative right.
Yes, and I think that's going to be one to watch, isn't it, to see whether, because of course Reform had the problem of trying to find thousands of candidates, which Restore Britain will also have the same problem of finding. That seems to be almost, as people say now, if there was an election tomorrow, would Reform have enough candidates? The answer is probably not, in the same way that Restore wouldn't either.
Yes, and I think this is the key problem, which is that Reform has got to professionalize, which basically means that they need a bit of time to select individuals, party members and individual supporters who are credible candidates throughout the nation. That's not an easy job, because none of the parties are, you can argue, have got great candidates throughout the nation, but Reform in particular is starting from scratch almost, and to basically select these individuals, to educate them, to develop the policies that you need for a government if you are going to win the election, takes a bit of time. And it seems to me that Reform is lucky in a sense that it's got a bit of time, a couple of years before the next general election. But at the moment, the candidates that reform has really improved over the past, but there are still a few dodgy individuals here and there who have won council seats.
Exactly right. Now, the only people that seem to be benefiting so far from Keir Starmer are the Arsenal Football Club, because I actually said a couple of weeks ago that he was like a Jonah around their neck, a sort of albatross figure, because every time he goes to see them, they've lost a 12-point lead, and they looked as if at one point they might have lost the whole Football League. But ever since then, he stayed away, ever since he went to Armenia, and they keep winning. So they're now 5 points clear of Manchester City, which is very annoying, for one thing, because I don't particularly hate Arsenal for any other reason, but I hate them because of the fact that he's their #1 fan. But you, as a Tottenham fan, I assume must also be sort of grinding your teeth at the whole prospect of them winning the league, particularly when Tottenham are kind of hovering around at the bottom.
I kind of wish that Keir Starmer would set up camp inside Arsenal Stadium, and for the rest of the season, make an important contribution to their public relations, because, as you say, he's a very good individual from a Tottenham point of view. But these are dismal days for my team. But I still live in hope, and I think that given the kind of momentum that we've gained over the last couple of games, means that we have a very reasonably good chance of staying up in the Premiership and avoiding the humiliation of being relegated.
Yeah, I think you got the game with Leeds tonight, haven't you?
We got a game with Leeds, and my calculation is that we have a very good chance of winning this game. And if you can get 2 more points from the next 2 games, which is Chelsea and Everton, then I think we got it. We kind of made sure that we're in the 17th position, which doesn't sound very grand, but at least it means that we're not relegated.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you'd take that, wouldn't you? I mean, that's the thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, Frank, listen, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed, and good luck with it all. And I shall wish you well. Frank Farady there, Tottenham fan, likes to see Arsenal not winning the league, and would like to see Tottenham staying up. Sorry to do a bit of football every now and again, but the reason we are anti-Arsenal here is because of Starmer, because he does make you absolutely and utterly insanely hateful towards anything that he's associated with, including the football team. Coming up, we're going to be speaking to Ann Widdecombe. Dr. Claire Craig is going to be here as well. Meanwhile, though, time to get some news with Edward Hughes.
I'm Edward Hughes. Pathetic Starmer faces intense pressure to survive after Labour's heavy losses in last week's local, Scottish and Welsh elections. Reform UK made major gains. Plaid Cymru looks set to lead a minority Welsh government. And the SNP claimed victory in Scotland. The Dalek will deliver a speech today promising bolder action and pleading with Labour MPs not to trigger a leadership contest. Yeah, right. As senior figures like the Ginger Growler and Mandelson chum West Streeting are reportedly eyeing bids. Health officials are racing to contain a hantavirus outbreak linked to a cruise ship carrying British nationals, with army medics parachuted to remote Tristan da Cunha for a suspected case. Ooh, I'm scared. Politics dominates as the PM fights for his future. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
A very good evening, and we start with breaking news and a significant intervention tonight from the former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner concerning the Labour Party's future direction and further piling on the pressure on Sir Keir Starmer. Let's go straight to Westminster and join our political correspondent Ali Fortescue. What has Angela Rayner had to say, Ali?
Well, Angela Rayner, the former Deputy Prime Minister, has been pretty eerily quiet this weekend since that bruising set of local election results. She is widely seen to be a potential leadership contender, and there has been plenty, as we know, of leadership speculation over the course of the weekend. She has now spoken. She has released a statement. I will read you part of it. She says, "This is bigger than personalities, but it is time to acknowledge that blocking Andy Burnham was a mistake. We must show we understand the scale of change the moment calls for. That means bringing our best players into Parliament and embracing the type of agenda that has been successful at a local level rather than reaching back to an agenda and politics that has failed people. These are the fights we need to have, and the change in direction we need to see. Policy tweaks will not fix the fundamental changes facing our country. This government needs at pace to put measures in place that make people's lives tangibly better while fixing the foundations of a system rigged against them. The Prime Minister must now meet the moment and set out the change our country needs. Labour exists, she says, to make working people better off. That is not happening fast enough, and it needs to change now. I think the most interesting part of Angela Rayner's statement were her words about Andy Burnham, aligning herself with the Mayor of Manchester, who undoubtedly is a popular figure among the party's soft left. What is she up to? Is this a game of 3D chess? Does she want the leadership herself? Is this a way of her getting support from some of those MPs, while Andy Burnham is, of course, in Manchester, not currently an MP who could go for the leadership of the party? Or does she genuinely think he would be a good person to be back in the fold? Or does she think Keir Starmer could carry on? Perhaps she does, or perhaps she would like to be in Andy Burnham's cabinet. We can speculate as much as we like. It is very hard to get into Angela Rayner's head right now. What I'm sure Downing Street will be doing is looking very carefully at that statement and trying to work out what happens next, because all of this has really been triggered by a backbench MP called Catherine West.
How the story broke last night, Angela Rayner basically telling Keir Starmer to move aside and allow Andy Burnham to have a go at becoming the leader of the Labour Party. But of course, first, he needs to win a by-election. So, much to discuss today. Keir Starmer is going to be speaking this morning, making a supposedly life-saving, grandstanding speech, which I can't say I'm looking forward to, about why he should be kept in charge of the Labour government and why he should stay as Prime Minister. He says for the next 10 years. Goodness gracious me. But now, it's time for this.
Now, only two sorts of people oppose free speech, and they are at opposite ends of the scale. Snowflakes and totalitarians. I am offended, upset, insulted at least 30 times a day. Tough. It is not necessary to flash your knickers to do a decent ballroom dance. Free speech is for all, not for the privileged few. Nobody has the right to live their lives being protected from offence or from insult or from hurt feelings. And if you really can't take it, become a hermit.
Well, Ann Widdecombe, just the person we need to speak to on such an auspicious day, where you've got two different headlines. The Daily Telegraph saying, "Streeting, I'm ready to be Prime Minister," and the Morning Star, where it says, "Stop Wes Streeting." Pretty much sums it all up for you, really, doesn't it? Anne, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
I mean, I find myself becoming more incredulous with every passing day. There was a guy, you might have heard of him in America, called Jimmy Breslin, who was a columnist in the New York Daily News, and he wrote a book once about the New York Mets. It was such a bad baseball team that the title of the book was, "Does anybody here know how to play this game?" And that feels like what this government is now doing. They don't seem to know what they're doing. They don't seem to know. I mean, last night, as I was waiting for the front pages to drop, I was thinking pretty much anything could now happen in the next 24 hours.
Well, indeed. And what we do know is we've got Starmer's umpteenth relaunch. If he's honestly believing that what he needs to do to save his skin is to resurrect all the Brexit arguments and take us closer into the EU, then, I mean, that is proof positive as to why he has made such a mess of his term of office, because it points to complete delusion. He doesn't seem to understand that, ordinary men and women who are worried about their jobs, worried about being able to heat their houses, worried about being able to afford all the things they want to give their children, those people are not concerned with paying another £1 billion to Ursula von der Leyen. They want to know what's going to be done in this country tomorrow morning. Right. And the answer is nothing.
Well, exactly, because the front page says the Prime Minister fights to save his skin after Rayner ultimatums. I mean, it's sort of all about them. I mean, it should sort of be all about us. I mean, there's another story in the paper today saying 163,000 jobs are going to go in the latest terrible, devastating forecast for the economy. You know, we've got the NHS looking like they're going to have another strike, this time from senior doctors. We've got the problem of small boats arriving every single 5 seconds, practically, to add more thousands to the population. We've got no hope of defending the realm with our armed forces. You know, there's nothing that works. And surely to God, I don't buy the argument that we should let Starmer hang around because there isn't anybody better. I think he has to be taught a lesson, and the government have to be taught a lesson, that when the people speak, you have to react.
Well, I mean, that is absolutely right, Mike, but the psychology at Westminster is such. And I have to also say, you know, in your profession with the press and media, you know, it's all about personalities. It's all about what scalp you can get tomorrow morning. None of it is focused on the serious business of running the country. And I think that is why Reform made the gains that it made in the local elections, because it actually addressed issues rather than personalities. And I think that is just something that politicians have lost sight of. We want statesmen. We don't just want, you know, schoolboy politics. The student union politics is what we've got at Westminster at the moment.
Yes, but we haven't really got anybody in Parliament who works properly anymore either. I mean, it seems to me, and you're right to say that, yes, there is a kind of a scalp-driven element to the way the media operates, but equally, an awful lot of the media has been sort of supplicant to this Labour government because they were all so happy. I mean, look at people like Andrew Marr, Robert Peston, Beth Rigby, you know, the sort of the main protagonists, if you like, of the broadcast media, have all been literally heaping praise on this government until relatively recently, and even a couple of weeks ago, you know, Beth Rigby was reporting that, you know, Starmer was incandescent with rage when he found out what Peter Mandelson had been up to. Oh, really? Are you seriously trying to make us believe that? Because it's complete and utter nonsense. And I don't think they're critical enough, actually, of the personalities. I think they should be more critical of them. You know, they have this kind of, you know, reverence for the office. Rather like people say in America, you have reverence for the office of the president, you have reverence for the office of prime minister. Well, only if the prime minister earns the respect, which he hasn't done.
Well, I agree he hasn't earned the respect. I don't want to get into just an argument about the media when there are other things to discuss, but I think it is a fact of life. There is absolutely no reverence. We have passed from unthinking deference to unthinking contempt, and neither is a good thing. And it's time that we had more sensible politicians and more sensible media, like you.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, there's not too many people like me. Maybe I should say fortunately, is why we're doing so well. But how about this for a story, right? I don't know if you saw it up in Scotland. One of the many kind of side stories that popped up was that somehow the Greens managed to elect an MSP who doesn't actually have a visa to live here. He also happens to be a trans Tamil from Sri Lanka. And it may well be now that he has to be not only not allowed to sit in Parliament in Scotland and earn £77,000 a year, which he's apparently not by law allowed to do, but he might have to be kicked out of the country.
Well, I mean, he's exactly the sort of candidate that the Greens love because they believe in open borders. They don't believe in tight control. They hardly believe in any control. So they would love somebody without a visa. Well, you know, as you rightly say, you know, his right to be here at all, never mind to be in a position of public influence, is extremely questionable.
It's very odd. His name apparently is Q as his first name, a bit like the guy who used to run the gadgets at James Bond. Mani Vannan. Which I presume he's going to change to Woman Ivanen now that he's transgender. I don't know. But the other thing that I thought was extraordinary as well about what happened on Thursday and the way that the voting all kind of, was broken down was that, as you say, you've got kicked out of the job. Reform very much taking centre stage. The Greens not doing quite as well as perhaps they were expecting to do. And so we find ourselves now with what is a very changed political landscape, I think. And I think the beginning of the end of the two-party system, right?
I think it's more than the beginning of the end. I think it's now well advanced. I think the beginning of the end was when Reform very first came on the scene and was making inroads, but at that stage, not the deep inroads that we're making now. I think the old order is dying. Yes, I've been saying that for some time. I think we will move away from two-party politics. Now, the interesting thing will be who then does represent the left, because I don't believe that the Greens will survive the sort of scrutiny that any party comes under when you're talking about a general election. Britain has a habit and a history of rejecting extreme socialism. It was very happy to have Wilson and Callaghan and Blair, but it wasn't at all happy to have, and would not have, Foot and Kinnock and Corbyn.
Right.
And so I think once people realise they're not just lovable tree huggers, they're actually very, very serious neo-communists, I think there'll be a completely different reaction.
Yeah. Well, I think also the Zach Polanski kind of phenomenon, if you like, is slowly unravelling. You know, last week we found out that he pretended to be spokesman for the Red Cross, which it turned out wasn't true. This morning, the Telegraph's got a story saying that during an election campaign in 2020, he claimed that he worked at the Ministry of Justice, which also wasn't true. So, I mean, he's clearly got a habit of lying for a living.
Well, politicians very often trip up over their own CVs. Rachel Reeves has done, if you remember,
Yes.
in the early days of this government when she was claiming to be an economist in an important position in the Bank of England. And it was nothing of the sort.
Yeah.
Politicians do like to embellish their CVs initially, of course, to impress their selection committees. But what they've got to remember is that the selection committees having been impressed and they having been elected, everything comes under scrutiny. And the claims they've made will, I doubt, if this is the last time we shall hear that Zach Polanski has exaggerated something.
Yes, I suspect you're absolutely right about that. And what did you make, by the way, on, was it Friday or Saturday? It's all beginning to meld into my, maybe it was Saturday, that Peter Starmer announced that, we're going to make more changes more quickly, we're going to do everything differently and much faster, and we're going to look to the future. So here's Gordon Brown, who's coming in to be in charge of global economics, and here's Harriet Harperson, who's going to come in to be in charge of women, even though she doesn't know what one is.
Absolutely. And if anybody thinks that those two appointments are going to shore up Keir Starmer, then frankly, they're living in cloud cuckoo land. I mean, first of all, Gordon Brown, this is the man who wrecked the occupational pension system quite needlessly. This is the man who sold gold at bargain basement prices. This is the man who didn't last 5 minutes when he finally became Prime Minister after decades of wishing for it. There is no way that these people are going to save Keir Starmer. And in a way, it demonstrated the utterly sort of fantasy world in which he moves. The reality, Keir, is the electorate have just rejected you on a massive scale. And that is what you've got to address. And to say make more change more quickly, well, people will ask what change already? What is the change that you're going to make more quickly? Because you haven't been making it slowly so far.
No, well, that's the problem. And then the sneak peek that we got last night at the speech, I don't know whether you were able to see that, does not lead one to believe that anything has changed or anything is different, because he doesn't have the ability, does he, Starmer, to make a rousing speech? He doesn't have the ability to sound anything other than robotic.
Well, the trouble is he blows about in the wind. He'll make an announcement, and we all know now 22 U-turns or whatever it is.
Yeah.
He'll make an announcement, and the moment that the wind changes and blows against him, he'll just change. He won't do what Thatcher did, which was to say, this is what we're going to do. And even if it's a bit unpopular to start with, we're still going to do it because it's the right thing to do in the end. Will be popular. And she was right. Or like Churchill, who said, I'm not offering you anything other than blood, sweat, toil and tears. Honesty from politicians, and then purpose, and sticking to that purpose with resolution. That is what this country is crying out for.
Yes. But unfortunately, you've then got the civil service, right, which this government has failed to come to grips with at all. I mean, I don't know if you saw this one at the weekend, perhaps one of the more ridiculous stories of the year. The Department for Work and Pensions has increased the benefits paid out to households in polygamous marriages from April. Now, according to the Daily Express, the DWP has confirmed in its benefits uprating list, additional spouses in polygamous marriages are being given a 4.8% boost to their benefits from April, which basically means it's most likely to be more of a benefit for husbands with multiple wives. Now, I've always thought one wife is enough, to be honest. I never really wanted more than one at a time. But it's meant to be illegal to be a bigamist, and they're now actually rewarding people for having more than one wife. It's insane.
Well, this won't be a decision of the civil service. This won't be a decision of civil servants acting on their own. This will have needed the approval. If it was a recommendation, it will have needed the approval of a minister, at the very least, of a minister. And therefore, don't just blame the civil servants. Ask what on earth is going on in the DWP.
Yes. Well, you might well say, and apparently the man in charge of that is Pat McFadden, who is supposedly the enforcer of this government, another Blairite who came in to be sort of very much the right hand of Keir Starmer. And from what went on at the weekend, and from what has gone on with Mandelson, it seems to me that, and I said this at the time on Friday, the stench of Tony Blair has never really gone away. You know, when you think of all the people like Alan Milburn, who's still in a position of some power in the Department of Health, you've got, Jackie Smith, who's got a peerage but who's now involved in the government. You had Mandelson. You've now got Gordon Brown back, Harriet Harman, Pat McFadden, Ed Miliband. They're all people that were part of the Blair project, and they're still there.
Well, they are still there, yes, but frankly, in all parties, you get people who stay around for a long time. I don't think any of that would matter if the country was going in the right direction. If those people were taking the country in the right direction, I wouldn't be complaining that they're leftovers from the Blair period. I'd say, oh, jolly good, but they're not. They're absolutely not. And the fundamental thing in all of this is not whether Labour have done badly or Kemi Badenoch's done badly, or it's none of that. It's the country is doing badly under the direction of the current crop of politicians.
So what's your best bet as to what happens? And I know that it's a difficult one to predict in the next 24 hours, but, I wonder, and I don't know whether Catherine West is going to water down, we think she maybe going to water down her kind of ultimatum from yesterday, in which she will ask for some kind of orderly transition. But as I was listening to somebody say yesterday, you can't really have an orderly transition. Once the skates are under you, the skates are under you, right?
Yeah, an orderly transition is another way of saying a lame duck prime minister for months on end, because he won't have any authority to do anything.
Yeah.
And therefore, an orderly transition is always a nonsense from that point of view. Anyway, how do you have an orderly transition before you've decided if it's going to be possible for Burnham to return to Westminster?
Yeah,
now,
well, exactly.
Even if Keir Starmer says, yes, he's very welcome, the electorate have got to say so as well.
Yeah,
and
well, exactly. There's clearly no such thing as a safe Labour seat anymore. Clive Lewis said that he might give up his seat. Well, how do you know that he's going to win it? He might not. And I prefer Kamala Tominey's comment yesterday, where she said Keir Starmer's not so much a lame duck prime minister, he's a dead duck prime minister. He literally, he's not limping along. He's fallen over and he's collapsed and he's died. It's all over.
Well, I think it's all over as far as Starmer is concerned, but the question is when. That's the big question. And if they're going to hang around and wait for Burnham to get back into Westminster, if that's what they're going to do, and everybody can see that that is exactly what they're doing, then this Prime Minister will have no authority either here or abroad for the duration of that time. And by the end of it, the electorate will be so fed up that last week's bloodbath will look mild by comparison with what is coming.
Yeah, absolutely right. And great to see you. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Tell people to check out your Substack. I dare say you'll have plenty to write about this week.
Well, I will be writing this week. I didn't write at the weekend because I'm waiting for Starmer's umpteenth relaunch.
Excellent. We've done a little poll today, just because we just wanted to keep people's minds off the politics of everything. Your least favourite fruit? We've got green bananas, fluffy apples, soft grapes, rock hard pears. Do you have a least favourite fruit?
Well, I think a green banana, because I love bananas, but they must be ripe.
Yes. Well, I've got I've had a green banana now for a couple of days in a row, and apparently there's this new strain of banana which is green on the outside, but actually very nice on the inside. So look out for them.
I will.
Excellent. Good to see you. Ann Widdecombe, thank you very much indeed. Only on this show would you get Ann Widdecombe's least favourite fruit, which is apparently green bananas. We're going to go to the news. I'm going to finish off eating my green banana. Green bananas, 22%. Fluffy apples, 22%. Soft grapes, 11%. But coming in so far with the winning vote, so nearly 7,000 of you have voted, rock hard pears, 45%. Who needs them? Let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. Pathetic Starmer faces intense pressure to survive after Labour's heavy losses in last week's local, Scottish and Welsh elections. Reform UK made major gains, Plaid Cymru looks set to lead a minority Welsh government, and the SNP claimed victory in Scotland. The Dalek will deliver a speech today promising bolder action and pleading with Labour MPs not to trigger a leadership contest. Yeah, right. As senior figures like the Ginger Growler and Mandelson Chum West Streeting are reportedly eyeing bids. Health officials are racing to contain a hantavirus outbreak linked to a cruise ship carrying British nationals, with army medics parachuted to remote Tristan da Cunha for a suspected case. Ooh, I'm scared. Politics dominates as the PM fights for his future. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Now, coming up around about an hour from now, we think Keir Starmer's actually going to get up and start speaking. I presume he's going to do it at Downing Street, since there is no parliamentary session at the moment. Does Edward Hughes have more than one wife, says Laura? I don't think he does. He's only just got back with her. He was around on Wednesday. I didn't actually see him because I was a bit busy, but Carol Decker saw him, and he wasn't very well behaved, I have to be said. But we'll tell you more about that later. We will be at some point, by the way, should we say this? There will be a film version of that live show coming out in a little while, maybe a week or so. We're just editing it up and getting it ready for you to watch. So we'll bring you news on that when we can. Now, coming up, Alan Cook is here. He's going to be talking to us about Reform's victory over the weekend, what happens now. Dr. Claire Craig is going to be telling us about this virus that's come from the rat-infested rat virus ship somewhere in the Mediterranean. First, though, let's have a look at what Starmer's going to have to address, and that is, of course, Catherine West, the MP for Fry and Barnet, which is in North London, who announced yesterday and over the weekend that she's going to put a challenge in for leadership of the party.
I'm a fair person. I will hear what the Prime Minister's got to say tomorrow, and then if I'm still dissatisfied, I will put out my email to the Parliamentary Labour Party asking for names. And the reason I am doing that is not for me, it's for working people, because Labour is the only party that can beat Reform. We are the only national force that can take on Reform across the whole of the UK. And that will be the job coming up in the 2028 or 29 general election.
But do you think you'd get the numbers?
We need to take that seriously.
Do you think you'd get the numbers, though?
We will find out when I put out my email to the Parliamentary Labour Party. But what we need is that timetable from the chair of the party, and she and I are very good friends. She knows I've asked her for an orderly transition into a leadership election which will allow us to make the case to the country as well as to our colleagues so that we can go forward. And I say to the women of the Parliamentary Labour Party, don't just allow the men to stand.
Do you think that's what's happening?
I think we need to modernise. I think we're looking very dated. And I think we need to energise our communications, and we need to repair the relationship with the civil service.
And just
That's Catherine West there, the MP for Fry and Barnet, who started off by saying at the weekend that she wanted to challenge the Prime Minister, then kind of watered it down slightly to say she was going to wait and see what he said and then possibly challenge him if she wasn't satisfied. And if not, and if she was satisfied, she would be asking him to make an announcement as to a transition of some kind and some dates, a timetable for when he would leave office. But as we said there with Ann Widdecombe, the problem for Starmer is that if he does agree and does announce that he's going to leave, or say, for example, he says, I'll hang around until conference, or in which case I'll have to pay more money to Emma Wolf, unfortunately, or if he decides to stay, he's going to leave by the end of the next parliamentary term, which is in the summer, or if he decides to say he's going to leave this week, clearly he does not want to leave. But that's not the point. Surely it's for his party now to kick him out because he's a waste of space. Complete and utter dead duck, as I say, not lame, dead, finished. He has ceased to be. It's as simple as that. We'll come back to that, though, in a moment with Alan Cook. First, Dr. Claire Craig is here on this new, it says here, scary virus. The front page of the Times says that the Army parachuted medical staff onto a remote Atlantic island in an unprecedented mission yesterday to treat a British man who became ill with hantavirus after travelling on a cruise ship. It now turns out that a bunch of people are going to be flown into Manchester, I think, today. British passengers from the ship flown back to the UK. 22 of them landed last night. They're all going to be at the Arrow Park Hospital in Merseyside, kept in isolation for 6 weeks. Some people, Dr. Claire Craig is here. Dr. Claire, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Some people have said to me, you know, there seems to be an awful lot of scaremongering going on about this new virus. And are we falling into that trap where everybody's going to go, you've got to be really careful you don't catch this rat virus because it could kill you. What's the truth? What's going on with it?
That's absolutely the right thing to say, Mike. It's slightly odd how people are trying to whip up fear about this thing, and how public health officials, whose role should be to calm things down and to give people confidence that they know how to deal with these sorts of things. And instead of doing that, they're trying to whip up fear. So Deborah Birx yesterday, who was the US lead on the coronavirus task force right at the beginning of 2020, she was talking about asymptomatic spread, how we might all be, sharing this thing with each other in a way that was dangerous, that we shouldn't trace these things with symptoms. We should do it with testing. We need to start PCR testing. It was a real repeat of 2020 in a very, very odd way. And it's particularly odd when you understand the big differences between this virus and respiratory viruses. This is not a respiratory virus. This is a virus which lives among rats. They share it. It spreads with feces, urine, saliva between rats. And the rats don't particularly die of it. And so there's a sort of reservoir of it in that population. And when humans sometimes inhale dust from the feces or the urine, they can get sick and they can die. But when they're sick, they're not replicating loads of virus. They're not coughing out loads of virus. They're not really doing stuff that puts other people at risk. What happens is for a very short time, it can be measured in saliva, but ultimately it goes inside the body and it destroys the vessels. And that's how people die of it. But you can't catch it in that way. It doesn't make sense about catching it. And so I've looked quite deeply into how it, into the sort of evidence base for human-to-human transmission. And it's difficult, this stuff, but I think your listeners completely are going to understand the challenge. If you've got what appears to be an outbreak in a community, then you've got, you could potentially say, well, this person got it on this day and this person got it on that day. But if you want to understand where it came from, you need to have a very good understanding of the incubation period, so the time between exposure and illness. And for this particular virus, there is an enormous range. So it's between 7 days at one end and 2 months at the other. So if you've got that huge range of just, people exposed at the same time being sick at very, very different times, it becomes almost impossible to say, well, where did it come from for this particular person?
Right.
And there was one study that was done in Argentina where they claimed that they had proven human-to-human transmission. They said it was definite in 3 people out of 476. These were all contacts in a household of other people who'd been infected. But for these, what they didn't do at the beginning of the study is say, well, look, if we're looking at household contacts, these clearly are people in an environment where they might also have been exposed. We ought to have a number to say, well, that's a coincidence. There's going to be a small number where it just happens to be a coincidence, where it looks like transmission, but they were exposed similarly in the same environment at another time. They never put a number on it. So they just say that those 3 were real. And there has been since a case or 2 where they've followed through the genetics and they said, look, it looks exactly the same. It must have been human-to-human transmission. So we'll give them that. Okay, we'll give them that. But these cases presumably were saliva transmission, with the rate between spouses was way higher than between other family contacts, because that's the only way you could transmit it. It was through saliva or through sexual intercourse or something like that. So all of this like theatrics where they're pretending it can spread through the air and dressing up in masks and stuff is just theatrics. Right. And when you look at it closely, you see people like Tedros Ghebreyesus, who is the WHO General Director, who was in the Tenerife when these people got off the boat. And he's there chatting, doing the photo op in front of the bus. And the bus is full of everybody in PPE and it looks like some kind of horror film. And he's just stood chatting to everyone in front of it because it's not spread like that.
No. So this particular outbreak, it would appear, presumably was because were there rats, literally rats on the ship, which had caused, or was there something on the ship that had been infected by the rats in some way? How do you think it works?
that is an important question to ask. And, you know, we all know rats get on ships, and I don't blame the ships or the staff on a ship for that, because it's a very tricky problem, and they do things to try and prevent it. They have spikes on the ropes that go to the jetty to stop the rats climbing up the ropes. But, you know, nothing's perfect. And so, yeah, you do get rats on ships still. And like that should be the first assumption, is if there's a lot of people who have been infected with a virus that rats transmit, then that should be the first assumption. And like, I'm not trying to blame the people on the ship when I'm saying this at all. I'm just saying, isn't it odd that nobody said that that's likely as a cause? They just don't say that. They just jump to humans are spreading it to each other. Like, really? They know that before. So that's a slightly odd assumption to jump to. The other assumption they jump to, and you know that they have proven it now apparently, but the first thing that you should think when there's an outbreak in a ship of people with pneumonia that die very rapidly and at high rate is Legionnaire's disease, which is the air conditioning bacteria that's, you know, really problematic, and it kills people, and it kills people every year, and it's difficult to sort of keep on top of. And I'm not blaming anyone for failing to, but it's, you know, that should be the first question. And if you look at what they've said about testing, they said they've done lots of respiratory virus testing for pneumonia, and they've done the blood test. It needs to be a blood test for hantavirus because it's not coming out anywhere else. They've never mentioned the urine test that you need to do for Legionnaires, so that's slightly odd too. So the whole thing's been treated in an odd way, and the fact that it is Argentina, and that, you know, Milei is not a popular person with the globalists, and that Tedros is getting sort of a chance to tell him off for leaving the WHO is interesting to me.
Well, they tried all this with the monkeypox, didn't they? Do you remember that? Was that last year or the year before? I can't remember. When everyone was going, oh my God, there's this new terrible killer disease called monkeypox. It was like, actually, one, it's really not. Two, it's not really going anywhere. Three, it affects a very small number of people who have to act in a particular way in order to get it with particular people. Right? I mean, they just love this kind of, you know, let's frighten the hell out of everybody. But I don't think people are buying it anymore, are they?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people that aren't buying it. Thankfully. But, you know, the media still love it because it still sells. And there are other people who still, they just seem to be desperate for fear. And of course, as C.S. Lewis would say, fear is the parent of cruelty. Now, if you and I, or anyone we loved, was on that cruise ship, and clearly in a place where they were likely to be exposed to this deadly thing, the first thing we'd want to do is get them off the cruise ship, isn't it?
Yeah.
And everyone seems to be hating on these people for leaving the cruise ship. Like, this is cruel, you know, this is cruel to be making them stay on it. And they're not, they can't spread it. Even if they're infected, they're not spreading it to anyone. Just get them, you know, get them out and get them somewhere safe and just be a bit kinder.
Yeah, right. I mean, the poor people have now, having lived through the rat virus, are now having to land in Manchester. You know, it's even worse for them, you know. Andy Burnham's there, for heaven's sake, telling everyone what a great Prime Minister he's going to make, you know, even though Manchester is actually falling into the pits of despair.
Yeah, well, I just hope that you know, the people in Manchester can just be properly reassured by someone whose job it is to reassure. I don't know why these people, they never manage to do the calming people down job anymore, do they? They're always whipping up fear. It's really, really sad. And, you know, I've got young children who actually are fine on this subject, but their friends aren't. They're being caught up in this hysteria already. And it's just wrong to scare people.
Because at the end of the day, there are, at any given time, presumably loads of viruses going around, many of which we will never hear about or see anything on or will not be infected by. But we live in a biological kind of experiment, don't we? You know, that's at the end of the day what Earth is. It's full of germs, it's full of bacteria, it's full of, you know, life, different kinds of things emerging every single day, new species emerging, old species dying. You know, it's a live planet. So, yeah, of course there's going to be diseases. And the best thing we can do is be resistant to it by being reasonably healthy and not wearing a bleeding mask every time you go out.
So the idea that you can control the, you know, diseases in the way that they sort of pretend is a joke. And hantavirus causes up to 100,000 cases every year in China and North Korea. So, you know, if you want to get people scared, 100,000 is quite a big number. You could get the whole world scared of it on the back of 100,000, even though it happens every year, couldn't you? And in Argentina, they're sort of between 60 and 100 a year. It goes higher when there's been a lot of rain and there's more rodents around, and lower in between. But there were 82 in the last season that they counted, and there were 14 deaths. So this is nothing unprecedented about this, except who these people were, rather than that they exist.
Yes. No, exactly right. Well, Dr. Clare, as ever, great to talk to you, and good to get a voice of sanity and reason on the subject, which is always welcome.
Yeah, great having me on. Thank you.
Not at all. Dr. Clare Craig talking an awful lot of sense there. Sorry? Couple of comments to come. Yeah, let's have a look. This one, if you don't know what Substack is, it's just Mike's website with an opportunity to subscribe to the show and other goodies ad-free. That's a message from us, by the way. Morning all. My first week as a member, says Lady KB. I joined you after Plonk of the Week. Crazy wild bunch of hilarious lunatics. Love it. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I really enjoy doing, actually, is on a Sunday, we do a little thing called Ask Mike. And it's now turned into Ask Mike and Ziggy. And Ziggy was in a bit of trouble yesterday, Pooch. I didn't tell you. Because of the way both my kids were at home, and so there was the sleeping arrangement was slightly different. So I got up and gave him his breakfast around about 7 a.m. He had some sardines, which were very kindly sent in by somebody to him, and some sardines and some oatmeal, which he quite likes. And then mother and my children got up about an hour later and gave him another second breakfast, and he didn't say he'd already had one.
No,
because he likes to, he gives you the eyes and makes out that he's really, really hungry because he hasn't had any food yet. And so he had 2 breakfasts. I mean, just ridiculous. I've just read the Starmer Sutra, says Jack, 1,000 Ways to Shaft Your Country. Very good. Starmer wrote it with his top advisor, Zippy and Bungle. Yeah, well, he might as well have Zippy and Bungle as you get Gordon Brown and bleeding Harriet Harman. What is the point of them? It has to be said. Absolutely bloody ridiculous. We're going to talk to Alan Cook in a second. Are we moving over to UK Live today or not?
Yeah, we can do, if we do move over in about 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. Why don't we play Sharon Graham, who was on BBC yesterday morning talking about Starmer. She's the General Secretary of the Unite Union, who have already kind of distanced themselves a bit from Labour. She actually thinks he should go. Have a look.
I mean, I think the problem with what's been said here is that if only we told a story better, if only we put all of our achievements down and people don't hear them. If you had the achievements in stereo in everybody's house in Britain, full blast, it still isn't enough for what's going on. Of course you can say breakfast clubs are a good thing. Of course you can. But on their own, these achievements are not the same as having a different economic direction and a different political direction. Now, look, the truth of the matter is, and we're dancing around our handbag, is that essentially Keir Starmer will not lead Labour into the next election. That will not happen. I am very sure of that. And so the reality of now, they need to think about, I'm much more of a ticks in boxes woman. I want to know what the new person is going to do. Are we going to look at wealth taxes? Are we going to look at things in terms of reindustrialisation? Are we going to look at the bills, the eye-watering energy bills, the food bills that people are having now? There needs to be a short-term and a long-term solution to this, and I want to see that.
And I know the union leaders are demanding to see the Prime Minister this week, but are you as a group, because the unions still pay the Labour Party's bills, are you as a group going to tell him that he has to go? Because he still has lots of support. The Cabinet doesn't appear prepared to move.
Well, look, I mean, the Chulo group, which is the group that are affiliated, they have different views. I mean, of course, it's a broad church. Personally, for me and my members in Unite, we've already cut our affiliation, as you know, by 40% because they haven't been doing stuff for workers in a number of areas. We will be saying that what we want is an ordered transition.
So that's Sharon Graham from Unite Union, no relation to me, by the way, but obviously quite a sensible woman because she wants Starmer to go. An orderly transition. But as we say, there really isn't an ability to have an orderly transition in politics because as soon as everybody knows that you're going, it's a bit like any job, really. If you're the boss of a company and they know you're going, they'll start talking to the guy who's going to be the next boss. They're not going to bother talking to you, are they? Because why would they? And I'm looking in The Sun today for some kind of guidance as to what they think, because you might remember that I was having a go at them a couple of weeks ago with Kelvin McKenzie saying they don't seem to have a view. And they seem to have turned their leader page, which is where you're supposed to read their view, kind of completely, sort of, it's become a place with no opinions. Sorry, I just saw something about UK Live there. Go on, put it back. I fired up UK Live waiting in another YouTube window. Yeah, some people were saying at the weekend, particularly on Substack, that they couldn't find it. What you need to do is go to YouTube and where you can click on a button which will take you to the new channel And we want to. It's important that we do it because we need to build it up so that when we do new shows, we can get those new shows on there. But sometimes you have to click on something called live as well. Otherwise, all you get is a static page, if that makes sense.
Or go to that link there.
Or go to that link there, youtube.com/@UK Live Online. And I appreciate if you're on Substack, you might not want to do that, but at the moment, that's the way it has to be done. And normally speaking, even if for some reason you can't get on it live, there will be a clip which I'll put out on social media, either on Facebook or indeed on Twitter. And it's also available on YouTube as well. So do keep a lookout for all of that. But yeah, going back to the Sun's leader, it says the people's verdict could hardly have been more damning. Voters gave Labour a kicking in the local elections for its failure to do the job it promised just 2 short years ago. It then goes on about how Labour continues to stop listening to people, squabbling over who should lead the party. Yet another reset from the Prime Minister. But it doesn't say what should happen, which I think is a bit weird, because I'm not particularly having to go at the Sun for this, but they used to have very strong opinions about things, and they now don't seem to have any. They basically say we'll either get a lame duck Prime Minister held hostage to increasingly left-wing policies that were hidden from Labour's manifesto, or a new Labour leader. Well, we know that. You might as well say, it will either be dark when you look out the window at night, or it will be light because it's the daytime. I mean, it doesn't mean anything. And it says neither will have a mandate nor support from the majority of the country. Meanwhile, the critical issues the government should concentrate on are playing second fiddle to the Labour melodrama, and we all suffer. So what should happen then? I mean, is there nobody at the Sun who's got an opinion on whether Starmer should stay or go? It's very weird. I just find it all very weird. A couple of other stories to mention to you that are in the paper. Strictly It's Emma is their main front page story. Emma Willis is to be unveiled as the new host of Strictly Come Dancing. Great, I couldn't care less. Meanwhile, the World Cup has apparently been branded a flop by the US hotel bosses because fans in the UK have decided to stay home rather than pay rip-off prices. Demand for rooms has slumped in 9 of the 11 US cities hosting matches. In Kansas, where England will be based, 90% of hotels say bookings are down on a typical summer. And in Boston, where Harry Kane and teammates play Ghana on June the 23rd, 80% of hoteliers report room bookings are down. As a result, 70% of rooms are being blocked up block booked by FIFA have now been released for general sale. So that's not great, is it? I'm not that sure about the World Cup, to be honest. And certainly, I tell you who's got the great idea about the World Cup is Mark Littlewood. Because what he does is rather than go to the venues and spend loads and loads of money flying around America, he just goes to a nice hot island somewhere in the Mediterranean and watches it in a bar, which I think is very sensible. I might do that myself. Coming up, we're going to speak to Alan Cook from Reform. Before that, though, should we have a bit of Pooch's Pooch? Yeah, let's do it.
Beef tacos.
What's he cooking now? Tacos. Brilliant.
The salsa.
There's nothing we won't eat, is there?
We got a bit of yogurt here. So the tortillas ready? Put the guacamole. No, poquito, poquito.
Brilliant. Love those. We can watch those all day. In fact, sometimes we will. A final update on the least favourite fruit poll. Green bananas, 22%. Fluffy apples, 22%. Soft grapes, 11%. Rock hard pears would appear to be the winner. 7,500 votes. 45% of you Think rock hard pairs are the worst. Absolutely right. Now, coming up, we're going to be talking about the Reform victory on the weekend and accounts which were still being made actually yesterday to show Reform having a remarkable kind of turnaround from just a few years ago. Alan Cook's going to be talking to us about that. But what we're going to do is flip over to UK Live before we do that. And if you don't know how to do it, if you're watching on YouTube now, on the chat, Pooch will put out a little